Evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome participants to the joint hybrid planning board meeting of February 26th. As a call to order, Ms. Creighton.
Here.
Ms. Delicio.
Here.
Ms. Foley.
Here.
Mr. Allman.
Here.
Ms. Philbrick.
Here.
Ms. Tenney.
Here.
Like we have a full quorum tonight. Remind all board members, guests to be recognized by the chair if you wish to speak. This meeting's being recorded. First item is acknowledgement receipt of correspondence. And Gail posted a Gloucester public hearing notice and amendments to zoning ordinance, Town of Wenham 2 ZBA notices, and 1 planning board notice. At this time, I would ask anybody from the public who would like to speak for a limited time on anything that's not on the agenda. Yes, could you identify?
Can I sit or do you want me to stand? Does it matter? It's very short. Donna Furzy, Blossom Lane. Thank you, Ron, very much. I just have two things I just wanted to bring up. I attended by Zoom the MBTA Communications Subcommittee meeting today, and I just was concerned a little bit about trying to understand the mandate that the law states by right zoning, and that I needed to discuss and read the zoning mandate to a few people on Zoom to understand that it is by right zoning. It was just a little bit concerning, this length of the game, that we're still trying to understand this definition of by right zoning. Several people here in the room were there, and it's a big concern in the community, the definition of what by right zoning is, and just making sure with the communications meeting on Saturday that we have any answers that the public might have. Again, it's all about communication, making sure we get the right information out there to the community when we're presenting such important topics about this new mandate and what it means to this town, just making sure that we have the language correct. And my other thing is, when I was discussing too, just a little bit about something we can think about the task force meeting this Thursday, and just from a planning board perspective too, and something that after all these meetings that I've been on, when we talk about potentially zoning the LCD, one of the things that I don't think we've ever heard of, and I don't know, maybe you can tell me later, is that we have two bylaws, the adult entertainment bylaw, and we have the medical dispensary bylaw that's specifically to the LCD, and it talks about footage away from residential areas and things of that nature. And so I've never heard Emily or the task force talk about these particular bylaws that we currently have that's specific to the LCD, and I don't know if that's important, if we're still considering in the future the LCD as a 40A zoning district. But I'm hoping that that can be brought up, because I do have questions about that. I'd be concerned about that as well. And that's it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online? Okay. Thank you. Next item is this rules and regulations, which we sort of resolved. It's just the last thing was the final application form that has been in your packets for about a month now. I just want to move forward that that's in good shape. Any comments on that? I'd like to just move it forward.
Which one are you moving forward?
The application for street openings.
I have some comments. If you would like to hear them. I mean, I was cut off last time I had comments, but so do you want to hear them, or are you just going to vote it through?
Well, no, let's hear them.
Okay. So I think the purpose of this was to have one application. So on the front page where it says $100 fee paid, I think we either want to have two lines that says $100 fee for the DPW, $75 fee for the planning board, because if it's just one application, there will be cases where it goes directly to the planning board and doesn't go to the DPW. So we have to figure out the fee structure. The current link referring to the MapGeo doesn't work, so I don't know if that was just a placeholder or you wanted a live link in there. It doesn't go anywhere, it goes to an error page. I had on one of my comments that didn't make it back in is that our current application asks if it's in the flood control, water resource overlay, but then also floodplain and historic district. And I think we should add those back in. Those should be check marks I don't know what jurisdiction the DPW would have over those. I think if it's in floodplain, it probably has to go automatically to the planning board, but that hasn't been made clear. I think there also needs to be a note that if it's in 100 feet of wetlands, then it must get an NOI from Concom. It says page 8, but it's page 2. We're back to driveway and curb cuts. I thought we wanted to be consistent with driveway entrance.
Should be driveway entrances. I asked you to review these things ahead of this, about a month ago. I said, to make the comments kind of written, and then the board could look at them, we can incorporate them.
Yes, and I've been sick for 3 weeks, so I didn't have the opportunity. That's why I'm bringing them. That's why if I'm gonna get cut off again, I can stop.
No, I'm not gonna cut
Okay.
you off, but I'm just, wanna move this along, and we'll try to get this stuff incorporated.
And so in our current application, on one of the bulleted items, we asked for on the drawings to show existing and proposed structures, how that would look with the driveway entrance. The documents required, again, I think if it's a straight planning board application, we would need more than the 4 printed copies, we would need 9. And then again, if it were just doing one application for the site visit, this says if applicant will be notified by the Department of Public Works, but if it's the planning board, it would be the planning board. Then I had a question on, it looks like there's 2 back pages, depending upon if it's planning board or DPW. I don't know how that would work. If somebody, submits a 3-page application and I don't know who inserts, if it's planning board or DPW. So I think we want to, again, have it one, so that section could be rejiggered a little bit.
Where is that section?
It says page 9, but then it's page 9 and then it's page
It says track changes are on, it's hard to tell which page, it just needs to be
13.
So a lot of that stuff was deleted at the back, but go ahead.
And this says page 10. I think in our current one, and I just, to bring it forward, we say date received with application fee, and then we say $100 or 75 or whatever it is to the town clerk. I think just to be clear that it's paid to the town clerk. Then on page 11 with the decision, it says that the contractor is responsible for notifying abutters, but I don't know how we've defined abutters in this, how many feet, how much in advance they need to notify abutters. A couple typos, if I can email you those. I don't know if the DPW can state special conditions or not, so I don't know if that section would be here for DPW approval. If it's, the DPW portion is really a, by right section, and then once you get to page 13, it's the same issue, that it's a different back page than if it would be for the DPW. So those are my comments.
So could you incorporate these comments into a track changes on the document? And then we can have the board, look at it next meeting, and we can move it forward.
Sure.
Any other comments?
Can we discuss some of these before Mary takes the time to, because
Yeah.
I think some of them are, and I was gonna actually suggest that maybe Mark could do the administrative things, like change the driveway entrance, change the number of copies, and fix the page numbers. And if Mary has typos, certainly send those along. So that'd be my suggestion, and the hyperlink should be correct, you're right. But in terms of identifying that it's in a historic district, a flood district, wetlands, and structures, we're talking about a driveway entrance, and the historic bylaw would prevail, apply if historic, but it's probably, the historic bylaw doesn't, historic regulations, I don't believe, address any driveway, or if they do, it would be an overlay of that. Same with floodplain, same with wetlands, that's gonna be a matter for the Concom, and certainly if it's in a wetland, the building inspector has that as part of his checklist, so I think it's, and structures, we're talking about a driveway entrance, and our regulations, our bylaw, general bylaw is silent on how any dimensional requirements about the structure relative to the driveway entrance. So I don't think it's germane, it wouldn't need to be shown on the application. And as for the submission to the town clerk, that is in the regulations. If it should be on the application as well, fine, but I think it's, so I think the issues that Mary has raised that I would agree with would be change driveway, curb cut and everything to driveway entrance, make sure the hyperlink works, make sure I would reference the special permit regulations, the special permit section of zoning rather than have a specific number of copies. And I think the notification
To a butter.
to abutters is, and what's in a butter is defined already in our zoning. So I would not repeat it. So if it changes, it doesn't have to get changed here. So that's my response. But there's two kinds of things. One is administrative, and one is the designation of historic flood, wetlands, and structures, which is, I think, substantive.
So what is our definition for abutters for the contractor notifying them? I don't know what that definition is.
You're asking you're saying who the abutters are, and you're saying how they get.
Well, the
notified.
application, I'm sorry, are we requiring a butter notification for the application? That's not part of the
It
regulation.
was in there before.
It's in
maybe
the
just follow.
decision that the contractor notifies the abutters before, I assume, they do work. So that we did not have in our bylaw before, but now it's in this decision.
But that's actually not in our bylaw, so we should strike that. The contractor is responsible for notifying abutters or maintaining traffic. I think it's abutters for, courtesy or coordination, but it's not a requirement of the bylaw. It's a managing the construction process rather than when I think of notifying abutters, I think of them for the special permit process, so.
I think we did have it initially in our, when we did curb cuts.
As I recall, the notification to abutters from the contractor was language that was in the form before, it was not in the regulation that we wrote. And since it's an as-right governance of a driveway entrance, I think that we should strike the notice about the contractor. If a notification was required to abutters, that would not be something we'd assign to the contractor anyhow. And I don't think that a notification is required to abutters, given this as-right use that the DPW is going to oversee in terms of compliance. So I would recommend striking that. I agree with Sarah's other points. And I appreciate Mary looking through for typos and cleaning things up. I think that making the form part of the form as short and concise as possible is a benefit and a help to all of the applicants, because too much verbiage and cross-referencing to other things like Concom, as well as any web links, I think that all of that stuff should come out. You can't control what web link is going to go live. It's always going to change. It's going to be out of date the minute you publish it. So I would just say strike that and strike the cross-references and go with Mary's good edits to just tighten it up.
Any other comments from?
So I don't know where the comments are, so I will submit what I've done, and then if Mark wants to we haven't voted on anything, so I don't know.
Maybe what I'll do is I'll try and incorporate some of Sarah's comments, some of your comments, and put out what I think is a new, clean version, okay? And then, so any comments might be just kind of final little tweaking, and I'll try and make sure that there's cross references that are kind of unnecessary and extra verbiage isn't there. And so we have a nice clean copy to review for the next meeting.
Okay, so if we can get it into our packet ahead of our meeting, that would be great, and I'll put it back on.
I think Mary's made the suggestion for historic flood, wetlands and structures. I've said it that I'm not for that. Maybe we get a consensus of the board as to whether or not that should be in there, because otherwise we'll repeat the discussion again next time. So maybe people, I'm not sure how the rest of the board feels. Laura has said she agrees, but.
Well, I agree because I don't think that if you check that box that anything is triggered as an additional action. So if DPW already has the oversight of this by right application, then I don't see what we're accomplishing by putting check boxes that don't actually trigger an action. If they do, then they belong there. If not, I would just say strike them.
So the application is to solve both the DPW and the special permit
Okay.
part that we're gonna be reviewing. So if it comes to us, I don't know if that would be germane or make it different, but that would be the case.
My only question would be perhaps the Concom should be there, and perhaps there should be a sign off on the application that the agent signs off, and simply look at the GIS and see whether there's wetland in a reasonable distance. And if not, she can sign off. If there's a question about it, then you know she has to check yes. And depending upon, because there was a driveway application, maybe it was here or Concom, for a very long driveway that was expanded, that maybe it was in front of Concom. I've been to a lot of meetings trying to figure them all out, but
Oh, was that Old Wenham Way?
yes, I believe that's it. And so if that application came here, let's say, or just straight to DPW, perhaps it wouldn't be issued, and it would be, if they had come in to ask,
Okay.
which they didn't, I believe they didn't, but if they had, it would have been noted right away, right off the top, so it would perhaps. But the other ones, I don't think, like you said, I don't think historic has really any jurisdiction over where a driveway is. It's more about the buildings, and so, but I like the Concom one.
Okay, the consensus, Chris?
So, just to counter that a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about driveway entrances in the street, not the whole driveway.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever happens 5 feet in is not our problem, it's the property owner's problem just to get the necessary approvals. So, I mean, I don't think it hurts necessarily to say Concom, I just don't think it's gonna be particularly helpful to us in reviewing.
Okay, so the consensus of the board is to kind of go in your direction, I would
Okay.
say. Is there any objections?
So, did we ever answer who is issuing or overseeing driveways themselves?
Nobody. Are we talking about driveway entrances right now?
So the question is, who's overseeing
Driveways.
the rest of the driveway?
Building
Building inspector, I would think.
So we're just gonna like check
Site plan
boxes,
thing.
give an approval and just leave it there and hope for the best and hope that the property owner is a good person and knows how to navigate town hall? I mean, why would we not just, so if someone's moving something from a driveway entrance that wasn't in the water resource district and they're moving it to, that's not a concern, like, I feel like that is an issue. Like, why would we not want to tell the applicant that, you know what, you're moving it from here, this may not be the best idea, so you're not giving the applicant all the information that potentially could be a problem, and they could be designing something And they're gonna come back and say, well, why didn't you tell me, like, this is gonna be an issue? Why didn't you tell me I can't pave it? So, I mean, I feel like you're just trying to push this through and not get a lot of feedback or pushback, but you're opening up a big can of worms without letting people know that it could be an issue. I mean, why would the driveway entrance why would you not say if it's in the district or not? I mean, it is or it isn't. And I mean, if it is, then it could lead to issues.
Chris?
Just for the record, we never regulated driveways.
We did, though.
We put together policies for what driveways should be, but there's nothing in the zoning bylaw that gives us the right to regulate driveways now or before.
We did it along with the location and pervious and impervious, and if it was in the water overlay district and needed a recharge system. We, as the planning board, did all of that. And now that's just, kind of to Christine's point, it's kind of in nobody's land right now. So, you know, it's fine removing the checkboxes. I just had those because that's what we currently have on our application. I think, you know, since the DPW does not oversee floodplain or the water resource overlay district, if an application comes and it's over the, I always get the two mixed up, impervious, pervious percentage, that they would know, trigger right away, this needs to go to the planning board. But if that's not checked off, it, you know, it may slip through the cracks, who knows? I always like to err on the side of, you know, having checks and balances, but it's a board decision.
Any comment?
I think that the prior zoning and the current general bylaw regulate driveway entrances. And I think Mary and Christina are correct that we did use that review to identify when a recharge area was needed. But but I see them actually as two separate things. If I am not putting in a driveway entrance, but I am putting in a basketball court that is impervious in the water recharge area and tipping my lot coverage over the threshold, that also could fall through the cracks in the same way. And I think that's what we're talking about, is we're talking about how does the water, the regulation of impervious surface in the water protection district get overseen, which is separate from driveway entrances, which is what we're talking about. And because our prior zoning and our existing general bylaw talk about driveway entrances. So I think you've identified what may be a gap, but it is not what we're addressing here, I think.
Laura?
If we're talking about a regulation that's for curb cuts, driveway entrances, which regulates safe passage into the street, safe sight lines, drainage into the street, that is not the same as regulating driveways. That might be part of a site plan review or a building inspector's job, but I don't think we should confuse the two. I don't think there's a gap. We're talking about regulating from the entrance of the driveway to the, 10 feet or whatever it is, and that can't capture impervious surface and the route that the driveway takes. Those are just not regulated by that regulation. If we feel like we need to look elsewhere, we can take that up another day, but I think we're trying to do a service to make the regulation clear and specifically scoped to the issue, which is driveway entrances, and make a short, concise form that people can follow. And I think we're headed in that direction, but I just want to say that I don't think there's a gap here. I think it's just the scope of the regulation.
Christina?
So if someone had a sport court, they're gonna go to the ZBA and they're going to file an application, and that application will have on that impervious versus pervious, so that's not a gap. So I don't feel like that example is relevant here. We did capture it, and if someone's moving, again, to my example, a driveway entrance from one location to another, where one may be in a district and the other isn't, we're not doing the applicant any service, or because we're not giving them the information. Well, they may know this west side may be, this they may not be, and they may go ahead with their plans and they're gonna be out of compliance, and they're gonna say, why didn't you give us a heads up? So I feel like our job here is to give people some more information. Who else is gonna give them the information? They're gonna pave the driveway, they're not gonna know, and then they're gonna say, you're kidding me, I'm in the overlay district, I didn't know, and I have to tear it up? So I guess, why would we not put it on there? I just don't understand why we wouldn't.
Okay, any other comments from the board? Okay, so I think, see what you come up with, Mark, on, based on the comments, and we'll review it for next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you all. So Sarah, special permit, site plan review and hiring of consultants, any,
I have nothing to report,
nothing on
sorry.
that? Okay. So I have 6:56, the hearing is scheduled for 7, so I'll take something out of order.
How about minutes?
Excuse me?
Ron, may I ask a question since we're on curb driveway entrances? I was listening to parts of last planning board meeting that I could not attend, and it was proposed to change the general bylaw that was just passed, to change the width from 12 feet, and I didn't hear any resolution on that. Where does that stand?
So I
Yep.
think you.
I just raised it as a discussion and asked people to think about it, and I did only today email Chuck and Nate for their input, so suggest maybe we wait and get their input and maybe remind people to think about it again, and that was the extent of discussion.
So why would we change it when we just brought it to town meeting?
Maybe we don't. I mean, it was a question, it wasn't it was my observation, my opinion, that most driveway entrances off the flare are more than 12 feet. It was a discussion. So I think we get back from Nate and Chuck and see if they think there's a problem. And the other, it came about because we had identified, as we had gone through the regulations, a number of other things, commercial, and also that there was no exceptions, and I think those were both erroneous when you look at the general bylaw. So it was a package of things, and I think the only one remaining, in my opinion, was the width. And so we don't have to do anything, or we can think about it. So I think we can table it till next time.
I don't think it'll make the spring town meeting if we wanted to change it at this point, but, okay. Got 2 minutes. I will give a quick report, liaison report. I'll do the CPC. We met on the 15th. You all had the applications that were going forward, the projects for CPC, but there was one change. I'll just mention it was in the Parks and Rec application for the reestablishment of walking paths at Masconomo Park. They requested $40K, but because of the flooding, Parks and Rec withdrew it, and the project was amended to a $10,000 Masconomo Park engineering study report. So that was the change on that. All of the other projects remain as you received in your packet last meeting. Any other liaison reports, senior housing,
No, we've tabled that.
harbor management?
Harbor Management is meeting again on next Monday or Tuesday, I'm sorry, I can't recall. And as I had said before, we're planning a March 19th open sort of discussion to hear from folks about what issues they think are important for the harbor. We also,
Is that a Zoom
refine, no, it's at the high school.
Okay.
they'll- As soon as we have if there's a flyer that's being developed. The other thing that we landed on, and I think I mentioned this last time, is this harbor management study turns out is a broader region than just what we might think of as the harbor, and it's basically a coastline study and the issues that affect the coast. And out of the town's border at 3 miles. And we are purposely kind of going to exclude particularly Singing Beach because it has a whole set of issues around that Parks and Rec is well familiar with, and it seems like it will dilute the effort. And people are certainly welcome to bring their issues about Singing Beach to the forum, as it is in the region, but we expect we will probably not be taking those up certainly pass any feedback along, but our focus will be more what you think of as the harbor and the other issues along the coast that affect the harbor. Harbors, like there's other small inlets and harbors and islands.
Okay, thank you. Any other liaison reports from anybody? Okay. I have 7:01. So at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing on the application from 19 SPR Nominee Trust for a special permit under 6.4 of our zoning bylaw to allow earth removal and filling at 19 Smiths Point Road, Assessors Map 20, Lot Number 16, in District E, filed with the town clerk on January 29th. The public hearing notice has been duly noticed and advertised in the Cricket. The modifications include filling of greater than 100 cubic yards with the interior area of the lot. The total fill is expected at 2,000 cubic yards. Demolition of the main dwelling and accessory buildings. So at this point, I'd like to have the applicant's representative, James Polakowitz,
Yeah.
from Hancock Association for presentation, after which I'll ask the board for any comments and questions. Mark will provide any comments and questions, and then there'll be questions from the audience. So with that in mind, I'll turn it over to James.
Good evening, my name is James Blackwood with Hancock Associates. I'm representing the applicant and their special permit for filling over 100 cubic yards within the interior of the lot. Here with me tonight is Chris Riucci, who's the landscape architect on the project. She's joining electronically. So I have some pictures here and plans. We also have them on the computer too. I can go with the posters, and Sarah, I don't know if you want to just kind of talk them through. It's the same presentation. So this is 19 Smiths Point Road in Manchester. Here's the existing site, the house, a few different views of it, just to give you an idea of what's going on. So here are our site plans showing what we're proposing. We're proposing to demo the main house, the carriage house, and then what's called the Bluff Cottage over here. The Bluff Cottage has actually already been demoed and rebuilt. The main house and carriage house still stand. Other site improvements are a new septic system that's over here, utility services throughout the site. We're doing new landscaping and hardscaping throughout the site, and then we're regrading the site to match the currently proposed project and the landscaping. So that's what you can see in here, and that's why we're here tonight. So most of this fill that's coming from, or that we're getting this volume from, is because the existing house has a walkout basement. Show the picture. Try to get some pictures of it here. Walk-up basement in this area. And then there's also a drive-under garage. So we're proposing to fill those areas so that, because there's no longer a walk-up basement proposed. And because of that, the walkout basement is about 7, 8 feet, and we're filling that 7 or 8 feet. So the fill is about 2,000 cubic yards, cut is about 120 cubic yards for a net of, 200, it's a net of 1,800 cubic yards of fill. So the reason for the fill is to reduce the massing of the retaining walls that are proposed on site. And that'll just make it so the house, the patios, the retaining walls, everything just blends in together into the surrounding landscape. So Chris prepared these landscaping plans here. So as you can see, there's plantings throughout the site. There was a whole landscaping plan done specifically for the Bluff Cottage. I have it behind this plan if you want to look at it. But the site will be beautifully landscaped. It'll be native plantings, ornamental plantings, as I said earlier, hardscape, and then the softscape. So the ledge on site, there's a lot of exposed ledge out here. It's being used as a design feature, and it's going to remain.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with you on the screen,
I'm
but
sorry.
it's a PDF, so it's hard to.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
That's-
Here is the Bluff Cottage landscaping plan. So here are some renderings that were done by the architects. They just show the house and how it works with the surrounding landscape. I know it's a little bit dark. Maybe it comes out a little bit better here. Do you guys get to the renderings
sorry.
there?
Any, house? Anything on that, areas?
Yeah,
Okay,
so
sorry.
these are the renderings that we're
I'm
done.
trying to, they're different scales, so I'm trying to
Yeah.
blow it up when it's.
Sorry. Yeah, they printed out just kind of dark, so I can see them back there. So as you can see, here are some of the retaining walls that we're filling up to the house itself, the exposed ledge to remain. The house in general is a lot less massive than what's out there now. The current house is 3 stories with a walkout basement. What's being proposed is a 2-story house, basically a 1.5-story house with a subsurface basement, standard basement. So it's a lot less massive. It is longer, but yeah, so it blends in a little bit more with the surrounding landscape. So there's my site plan again. So we're proposing a subsurface chamber system over here, which will pick up the roof drains from the house. And it will also pick up some of the patio drains. And this will cut down on peak rate, so it'll promote infiltration. It's also sized to accept pool drawdown. So in the spring, when they lower the pool, it's sized to handle all of that. So it's actually well oversized for what the roof area is. So, we believe that this project, it's actually a benefit because we're returning this area that we're filling was likely cut for the walkout basement. We believe that we're returning the site to its former grades and shape. With the stormwater system, there's not going to be no drainage issues and all the landscaping. It's going to look really nice. So we think that this is going to be a benefit to the abutters, the drainage, and the surrounding landscape. I can answer any questions you guys may have.
Any questions from the board? Laura?
I'm glad we're on page 9. This looks overall like you are restoring the former topographical nature of the site.
Mhm.
And I've said just a couple of questions about stormwater and the project site, the limit of work, and then these
Mhm.
blue buffer lines. So maybe we can talk about that. So those
Yeah.
are your no build and your
Mhm.
buffer zone. And can you just walk us through the blue lines and what structure or other kinds of build is
Yeah.
happening?
So this is the Bluff Cottage. This is the smaller house out on the corner. So this project went through its own notice of intent, and it's actually already been built.
Okay, so we're not really commenting on that one. Is
No,
there
it's more the
equivalent-
main house that we're
Yeah, is
looking
there an
at.
equivalent drawing for the main house with the
Yeah.
blue buffer zones?
Is that
I
on?
think it's up one more.
Just there.
There it goes.
Is this it?
Yeah.
Yeah, just pull down.
Right, I just have to make it smaller.
So the resource area out here is the coastal bank. We filed a separate notice of intent with the Conservation Commission specifically for the main house. That was approved a couple of weeks ago by them. The only work, or it's called the only work that's within the conservation jurisdiction is the filling. We moved the house back pretty significantly just to get it out of their buffer zone. We are proposing a stormwater system in the buffer zone, and that's because that's generally where the existing septic system is. The site has little to no soil. It's just ledge with
I
a
can
little
see
bit of
that, yeah.
topsoil that was brought in. So there's actually some depth there, and it's sand from what the records have. So that's why we're showing it there. But so yeah, here's your top of coastal bank line. Over here it's the blue. So there's a 30-foot no disturb, 50-foot no build, 100-foot buffer zone. The main house, most of the work is outside of the 100-foot.
But some of the landscaping is within.
Some of the
that zone.
landscaping's in there, and a lot of the landscaping that was done for the bluff cottage was done as mitigation. Again, we can't really do a ton for stormwater. There's just nowhere to put it because it's rock. We proposed a crushed stone drip edge, but the mitigation was all native plantings. That was what we were proposing.
Okay, and have you changed the amount of impervious on the site previous?
I'll have to look at it. I do think it is a net increase by a little bit. There is a lot of impervious out there currently.
Yeah, okay, but you're proposing, what's the design storm to which the, you said it can take the whole pool, so I imagine you're storing a lot of water.
The way that the pool system is designed is the pumps are so much stronger than what the sand can actually infiltrate out there, the sandy soils. So that volume is actually equal to, I think it's 2 feet over the pool. So in the 100-year storm, the system fills up halfway.
Okay,
But it's more size for the pool.
yeah, okay. All right, so there's no, you're controlling all the runoff on your site in terms of the impervious areas. You said most of the patio?
Yeah, so it'd be the roof area and the patio areas here.
Okay, they're all captured by the stormwater system.
Yeah, so, we're still working on like downspout locations and everything like that, but we have provisions for it. We have plenty of slope to get over to the chamber system. So, when the roof drains are located, we can finish that off.
Okay, and I saw that there were some areas that were previously lawn, which you were keeping, but you're also doing some native plantings and more complex landscape that should slow down the stormwater drainage. Can you, maybe Chris could talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. Chris, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So, one of the things, I mean, it's a large project, no doubt. But, one of the things that we were really trying to do both in our Conservation Commission filings and also before you today, is to essentially look at the impacts and, provide, I would say, enhancements in terms of both its visual impact. Jay described, we had a very tall, large building, and really with this grading, we're proposing to, reduce the visual, volume impact of what you see. Jay's also talked about, importantly, the stormwater management. But also with the Conservation Commission, in our application, we talked about the fact that I think that our net reduction in, I'm going to say manicured mowed lawn is, I think it was over 6,000 square feet. So, and a replacement and a restoration of that with both native plantings and ornamental plantings. But again, looking at ways that we can enhance, what, we're doing in this project, through the restoration efforts. So, is that helpful?
That is helpful. I see you're, with the regrading, you're creating some steep slopes. How are those handled in terms of vegetation or runoff over those areas that are regraded?
Right, good questions. There are slopes. They are, none of the slopes exceed 3 to 1. And 3 to 1 is, the standard slope that can be vegetated without, creating, erosion issues and things like that. So we've been very mindful in our grading to both, limit erosion and also to, aesthetically integrate this new building into the existing landscape.
So the 3 to 1 slopes, are those lawn or are they other kinds of vegetation?
The 3-to-1 slopes are part of our landscape restoration, so those will be areas which will not be lawn, but they
Okay.
will be, restored with, with woody and perennial and, ground cover plantings.
Okay, that all makes great sense to me. Last question for me is, this is much more a fill site, obviously. Are you planning any blasting?
So it's hard to say right now, for the exterior improvements, most of the house width is within the existing house. And not only does the existing house have a full walkout basement, it actually has a pool in the basement. So, there's that was significant
Yeah,
cutting or,
yeah.
blasting. I don't know how they would have done that because it was done after the fact. But we're trying to stay within the house mostly. There may be some areas. It's hard to say until you start digging, what extent of ledge is out there.
But the intent of the goal of the project is to preserve the exposed ledge and.
Yeah. So it'd be, if there's anything subsurface.
Yeah.
And like you said, it is predominantly a fill site.
Okay, thank you.
So 2,000 yards, it's a lot of fill, it's over 100 truckloads, is that?
Yeah.
It's kind of right, or coming down, is that all being imported down the street?
So there would be some of the site that would be reworked. The basement area is moving. Anything that can be reused on site will be reused on site. So again, it's hard to say with how the basements compare and everything, how much is actually being excavated for the proposed house versus what's the existing house. And most of that volume is coming from the height. Like I said, it's a walkout basement that we're filling in, so that's about 7 feet vertical at the highest point, which is right here, which is the existing walkout basement door, is what that wall corresponds to.
It's a pretty narrow road up there, and, to be hauling over 100 trucks, is a safety concern, I don't know.
Yeah, so, I'm sure the contractors will do whatever they can, and like I said, we are trying to rework what's on site too.
Any questions from the board, anyone? Before I turn it to Mark. Mary?
Just had a question, and it might be a very dumb question. So with the fill, so did you say you were staying basically on the footprint of the house, the current house?
More or less, kind of. This house is a little bit longer, where the other one's taller.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, where the basement area is about where the existing house basement is.
So the fill isn't to raise up any structure, it's just to fill in gaps?
With the current program, if we didn't do any filling, we would have a wall that's a retaining wall that's like 10 feet high.
Okay.
So instead of doing that, we're proposing a slope that goes up 7 feet. So that way the walls aren't huge and everything kind of blends in together. And kind of what I was saying before is this whole area in here was cut pretty significantly to get the doors in. So the contours would fill into the house up here. Instead, we're having them come back around like they would have before the basement was dug out.
Okay. So that's where most of the fill is going, is that the front?
So we're maintaining existing grades over a majority of the site. Really, it's just these contours here. You can see the shaded area. That's where all the plantings are going, and that's where the slope is.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Sarah?
Were the abutters notified? Did we get confirmation about abutters notification? This is a special permit, right?
The abutters were notified.
Okay, great, thank you. I just was, to Ron's question about I'd like to see some specific plan about how the trucks are gonna, just what are we gonna require of those trucks as they come in? It's a really tight site, and are they gonna come continuously over a long duration, or are they gonna come all in 2 days where you could get a detail? Those are extremes, obviously, but that corner is blind, and it's it's a very heavily walked path. So, and then I think also you should be aware that the general bylaws require that construction hours start at 8 AM,
Okay.
which for trucking
Mhm.
is not generally, common, and
Yeah.
the backup alarms and all that. There are some, I mean, if you're gonna bring in 18-wheelers,
I'm sure that whatever truck is chosen would be based on what they can get there. As you said, it is kind of a tight road, so.
It's about 10 yards a truck, that's,
Yeah.
take a lot of trucks, 200 trucks.
yeah.
Barge, maybe barge.
More.
Yeah, sorry to follow up with one more quick comment if I may. When we're talking about the fill, is there any thought of reusing the existing building materials as fill? Say the concrete, assuming they're clean and,
Yeah, I'm sure that they can do that.
Chemically
So as part of this calculation, you don't use the building footprint for your cut fill analysis. So, where the two buildings don't exactly line up, aka where the basement would go that it isn't currently. So that wasn't part of this calculation.
Yeah.
I'm sure that the net fill would go down if it was.
yeah, because if they were recycling some of the built
Yeah.
materials, say the concrete from the
Yeah.
site walls,
Mhm.
and subgrade material, then that would reduce the trucking, assuming that all the materials are,
Then they would have to be crushed on site, right?
Yeah.
yes, so they're
There's,
pluses and minuses,
Yeah.
that I defer to the construction methods.
Yeah,
but-
I think that the existing foundation is probably some sort of stone, just given the age of the house. So,
Mark,
So getting back to that, as far as either the demo material from the basement, whether it's, fieldstone or there's some concrete, you said there's a pool, so that might be concrete. As well as blasting, like if they do have to, sounds like they may have to blast some ledge, because it sounds like from what you described, the footprint of the new building is larger than the footprint of the old building. So you're gonna have concrete, fieldstone, and new granite that'll be blasted out of the ground. If you're crushing and screening material on site, that is a lot different process and noisier process than just trucking in some trucks back and forth. And so, so that's kind of what I think we ought to know, whether they're proposing to do that, and if they are, there should be some limitations on that, or just require that they not do that on site, because there'll be a lot more noise and dust associated with that.
yeah, and then the existing building is gonna be raised. So that's sort of part of this trucking, outgoing trucks.
So a truck comes in,
Kind of-
dumps a fill.
No, it's
Picks up
different
the-
trucks, I think, in general. I
Yes.
mean, you guys are the construction people, but I think they're different. That's what
Wishful thinking.
wishful thinking sequence.
okay, any, go ahead.
One final, if we were not to grant the permit, you'd be building a concrete wall, the retaining wall.
yeah, it would be a big wall, if we were to remove the slope.
Yes,
And just to continue that thought, if you were to build the wall, then the whole concept of restoring the topography to where it was before is out the window, correct?
Yeah, and it'd likely also affect the plantings too that were out here. It's grass there, the owners may wanna keep the grass versus planting.
okay, before I just want to mention that Gail had contacted the DPW and the building inspector for comments, and we have not, they did not offer any comments, correct? Gail?
They had no objection. They didn't offer any additional comments, but there were no objections.
Okay, any comments from the public?
I have
Okay,
one
so,
other question, sorry.
go ahead.
There are currently 2 entrances to that site.
Mhm.
Were there always 2 entrances to that site?
There was one that was up here, that was the main entrance, there was another minor entrance over here, so prior to construction, we worked with the DPW and they said that we were okay to have the second entrance, at least for construction.
Well, it already existed.
So it was a pedestrian entrance, we'll call it, vehicular was over here. So they couldn't get the trucks in to here.
Okay, so it's a construction entrance and will be closed?
And that's what they want to use as the permanent driveway entrance following construction.
And is the other entrance going to remain?
Yeah, on a minor scale, what they're showing now is, kind of like pavers with grass in the middle. And that would be if they,
So given that you're now have 2 driveway entrances where you previously had 1,
Mhm.
that means you come to us for that second one, I believe. And well, maybe we could modify your special permit.
Yeah, I mean, if we can simplify it, definitely.
Well, I think that would be my suggestion, is that that we take them up at the same time when we're out, and think about it when we're out there on the sidewalk. Because DPW can only grant 1 driveway entrance per site, so if it was just for construction, that's different, but if it's gonna remain with 2,
Mhm.
this site needs to come to us.
Okay.
So speaking of a site walk, I know several of you have agreed that the Saturday works. But I did get a late email today from the task force, asking us to be at this zoning forum earlier at 9:15 or something. So, I'm wondering if we can move the site walk to 8:15 in the morning, otherwise in the afternoon. And does 8:15 work for everyone, on Saturday?
Yes.
I would say afternoon.
You prefer the afternoon?
I think I would too.
You would prefer the afternoon? Oh, all right. I didn't think the board would prefer the afternoon. You guys want to,
I don't want afternoon, but I'll go with the majority, whatever.
so Mark suggested 2:00. Is that something you could make?
Yeah, I mean, anytime Saturday works.
It's fine.
2:00, everyone? So it is written, so it shall be done 2:00 on the Saturday. Okay, so at this point, if there's no further comments, I'd like to vote to continue the public hearing to our next meeting.
So moved.
Any discussion? Roll call, Laura,
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Yes.
Mary? Christina? Okay.
Could I also suggest with the traffic and trucks and everything else that maybe we get input from the police?
Could ask the police chief.
Well,
weigh
I
in?
think if there's any potential of a road being blocked or, like, if we don't know the traffic schedule yet, we don't know, we're slated to do the on-site, but, it's sometimes, you have to broaden out a little bit.
I mean, if you have a single truck queuing there, you block the road.
Want to pull out site and queue there on site.
Right, but I mean, how many, it's,
Gail, can we have Chief Fitzgerald weigh in or send it to him, or I can do that? Thank you.
I'll forward it. I have extra copies.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
Thanks, guys. Okay, so I see we have the zoning district update next, but I think what I'd like to do is, where is that? Go over the peer reviewer interview for Cell Signal. I'd like to put that up so we can save the task force for later.
no, I'm gonna give it back to thumb drive.
So, Mark set up, interviews tonight with two firms, that, were in your packets on their proposals for, peer review on these topics we're interested in. And I think we have representatives from BSC and Weston and Sampson. Is that correct? So nobody's here in person, except Peter. So Mark, which one do we wanna go with first? Or how
I
do
would
we
just
want?
say we received BSC's application, proposal first, so why don't you
Okay.
talk to them first?
So would the representatives from BSC identify yourselves?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Steven Saragusa. I'm with the transportation designer at BSC Group. Thank you to Mark for reaching out to us and requesting this proposal, and to the board for reviewing it and allowing us to be here tonight to interview for it.
Okay, welcome. I guess I'll start with a couple of questions. Is BSC currently doing any work in the town?
Currently, we are not currently. We have done work in the town previously, but not currently.
Now, I don't know, one proposal had a tentative schedule of 2 weeks for a notice to proceed, and then 4 weeks you'd be ready with the first topic or topics for peer review. Is that something you guys would agree to?
Yes, our understanding was, I know that the timeline is whatever the planning board needs it to be. We will make sure that we have a comprehensive submittal for, I know the first hearing, I believe, is on, I think Mark said March 11th, and I believe we should be able to have something for that.
Yes, so the March 11th is just, it will be our first public hearing. It'll just be an overview of the permit, mostly for, educational purposes. And then I believe on April 8th, we would start with maybe, I don't know, with traffic or whatever topic we would come up with. That would be the first time we would expect some documentation on or peer review comments.
Okay, that schedule works fine for us.
Okay, so I will ask the board, have any questions for BSC on their proposal? Chris Olin.
Could you just give us an overview of the firm, how many people work there, what you do?
Sure. So we are a full engineering firm. So we have civil, traffic, structural, survey, eco. We do not currently have in-house geotech. We would be sub-consulting that part of the peer review out. We are about 180 employees, give or take a few at the moment. We're based, in Boston, but we have offices in Andover, Worcester, in Connecticut. So we are well versed in the New England area. And yeah, we've done dozens of peer reviews. Myself, I've done probably about a dozen or so traffic peer reviews. That is my area of expertise. So I think we are well versed to take on this entire submittal for each of the different aspects of it.
Is geothermal in your wheelhouse?
Me personally, no, but that is something that the geotech engineer that we will be sub-consulting with, I believe, will be reviewing.
Okay. Any questions from anyone? Other questions, Sarah?
Who is your geotech sub?
It is off the top of my apologies for not knowing this off the top of my head. It is our civil person has worked with this company before, and if you give me 1 second, I will remember the name of it. He is,
Or you can get back to us
You
with
can
that,
get
I
back to
guess.
us, yeah.
My other question is, there's not a there aren't, you haven't specified the specific, personnel. Do you have, are they all PEs? And will the specialists, civil traffic, landscape ecology, and geotech, who are presenting to us, and be the same people, who review the material, as opposed to a second, a front person and a back office person? Who's doing the work?
sure. So to go back on the previous question, Mark Balf from Haley and Aldrich is the geotech engineer we'll be working with on it. In terms of the second question, so yes, myself, I am not a PE currently, but I work directly under a PE PTOE. So we will be doing the traffic review. Dominic Rinaldi at our office, he is a PE, he will be doing the civil review. Ricardo Ostrich, who is a professional landscape architect, he will be doing the landscape review. Matt Byrne is a PE, he will be doing the eco review. And my guess is Mark Balf is a professional engineer doing the geotech review. And if that is the wish of the board, then we can make sure that the PE and or PTOE is able to present the findings.
Any other questions on the?
I have one other question. You have a lump sum and then some additional services billed on a hourly basis. If for some reason, I'm not sure I foresee, but if for some reason the scope were to be decreased, for example, let's say traffic needs 1 meeting and ecology needs 2 meetings, is there flexibility among your experts so that we get a total of 2, 4, 6, 8 experts attending 8 people meetings, so to speak? Or is how are you're billing at a fixed price for those specific attendance? Can that get moved around across categories, or is that what you think?
If need be, if those 8 meetings, let's say, are not required, I guess it would be something to discuss with the town. If that's typically, we try not to move money from task to task, but if that is approved, then I see no reason we cannot do it. But that is kind of our way of putting together these proposals, is estimating hours-wise how many man hours would be needed to attend planning board meetings.
So I guess just tagging on to what Sarah was saying, what if it was the flip and we needed more of your time? I see the additional services. Is that something, maybe it's a Mark question, is that something that we just authorize, that we need more time and then you're available? How does that work?
So I think on our end, what would happen is if we, attended, say, the second meeting, and more time was needed for a third meeting, that's something that we can discuss with Mr. Resnick, and either say that we can figure this out and we can do it under the current scope of services with the current budget, or we need some additional services.
Yeah, so oftentimes when it kind of goes above and beyond the original estimate, is that, it is based on time and materials for the particular engineer that, or expert that you need, because they oftentimes bill at different rates. Or traffic engineer may be billed at a different rate than a geotech sub or somebody like that. So depending on what's necessary, usually we contact the applicant to make sure that they, because they will be paying the bill, that they're okay with the extension, and then we move forward with authorizing them to keep going, so. And usually by the time you get to that area where you need more time, it's pretty clear that something different has come up. The town's requesting some additional review, and they're looking at something quite specific. It's not just another broad brush, let's spend the applicant's money for review, just because. So it's usually quite specific.
Laura?
Yes, thanks. I have a few questions, Stephen. Your approach to the site visit, what do you look for, what do your staff look for with the site visit? What's the purpose of that?
I'll speak specifically to traffic first, because what I know is just essentially how vehicles are moving through the area. Doing a once over through the initial report, and just see if their observations, if their existing conditions is actually what is going on out there. Because I think that's important. That's the basis for any comparison of future conditions. And I think I would say from a civil and landscape would probably be about the same. Is really taking a look at what's the plans and what's proposed out there, and then going and walking the site and seeing what the site currently is, and whether or not those proposed conditions make sense for what is actually out there.
Okay, thank you. And then in terms of the stormwater peer review, are you commenting on quality, quantity, and resiliency? What are you looking for, and how do you evaluate the stormwater management system?
Yeah, so my understanding of stormwater systems is Dominic, who is a PE who's been doing it for 20 plus years now, he kind of takes a broad overview of the entire system, and then gets really kind of down into the specifics of it, and his reviews, and I know his plan sets that he submits and produces are very well rounded and well versed in kind of all aspects of stormwater. So I think that he'll kind of really look at it with a very specific eye, and then really take a look and make sure that what they're presenting and their numbers and their calculations will actually make sense.
Okay, thank you. And then as far as the ecology and evaluating the proposed, the wildlife biologist is proposing the biohabitats plan. That's not a traditional PE discipline. Who would be evaluating that, and how would you approach that task?
So Matt Byrne, who is on staff here, is either him or Sarah Preisel, who is a PWS. And I'm sorry, I said PE before. There'd be a professional wetland scientist, PWSs. Would really be taking a look at it. And I'm not super privy on specifics of ecology, but being professional wetland scientists, I would assume that they kind of take a look at, again, similar ideas, Dom, with the civil review, taking a broad overview of it, and then really getting into the specifics of everything.
Okay, thanks. My last question is, you've done work as a peer reviewer for other municipalities, and the goal of this is to get the best possible project for the town and to understand the technical proposals. Can you give us for instance, of an example of findings before the BSC has produced, could be any one of the disciplines, could be your own, about comment that you've made that has resulted in some positive change for a project, that you were able to, come to as a peer reviewer that made, some kind of an impact on the project? Just trying to understand what that process must be like.
Yeah, absolutely. From a traffic perspective, I could think of, right off the top of my head, we peer reviewed a, what would you call it, a sanitation station, no, I can't think of the actual name for it, a waste station essentially in Georgetown, not too long ago. And as part of that peer review, we really took a look at, obviously truck traffic was a big part of that, as well as passenger vehicle traffic in and out of the site, especially on weekends. So one of our comments on that was, restricting times that they can operate, restricting times that trucks can be going to and from the site, especially during the weekday. That is a big thing, is restricting heavy vehicle traffic during the peak hours in the morning and the afternoon, and then Saturdays during the middays. So I know that had a tangible effect on the traffic report itself, as well as the approval of the project. So to get approved, but that was one of the conditions, was restricting traffic, heavy vehicle traffic at certain times. I do know that Dom Rinaldi has done a stormwater review before, that has resulted in the change of the entire stormwater design, needing a bigger system, because he found in his in his view, it was not a large enough system to accommodate, I guess what he would call the 100-year storm. So that led to an increase in the stormwater system on site.
All right, thank you very much. I'm set.
Any other questions? Chris?
So we've established a number of performance standards as part of our review process. And I'm hoping you'd be able to organize the peer review to sort of match our criteria, our standards, so it'd be easier to go through it and understand exactly how the project is going to comply or not comply with our standards.
Yeah, absolutely. That is, I could work with Mr. Resnick and the town team to make sure that we have the most up-to-date town regulations, as well as looking at, national standards from a traffic perspective is really what we use. Also making sure that we have town standards that the project and the proponent is following. So we would definitely make sure we have those.
And one other question, seems to me the most challenging aspect of this project is traffic, in fact. And not because there's a lot of it, but because the existing road infrastructure is pretty minimal. So I guess that's just kind of a heads up, but that's what we'll be spending a lot of time discussing, that, how Cell Signaling is going to deal with it, and how you're going to review it.
Yeah, traffic is typically one of the bigger issues with a lot of projects, and I myself, like I said, I'm well versed in speaking to the public and speaking to town boards and making sure everybody understands what's going on, as well as reviewing these projects and putting together these reports. So I understood that traffic is always a hot button issue.
Okay, any other questions for BSC? Christina?
Just, are we making a decision tonight?
I would hope so.
So I just didn't see, typically when you look at a proposal, they have, similar projects or projects that you've done recently. I didn't see that in your proposal. I know you just said generically, but could you give us some actual names of projects that you've peer reviewed recently?
Sure. So I did I can't speak specifically to most other disciplines. I know from a traffic perspective, we've done the waste station in Georgetown. I've done the Newton Armory down in Newton, which is right off the Mass Pike. I've done actually 3 peer reviews in Newton. I've done a peer review for multiple industrial sites down in Windsor, Connecticut, And I've also done a couple of peer reviews in North Reading. Apologies for forgetting what types of projects those were. Yeah, so just kind of a brief, mostly industrial, some 40B residential projects, and the ones in Windsor were also a couple of mixed-use projects down there.
Thank you.
What were the two others in Newton besides the Armory?
So it was Newton Armory. There was a conversion of I believe what is either a single family or two family home, converting to I want to say it was a 6-unit apartment building right in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And the other one was actually a cannabis dispensary.
One other question
Yeah.
on that. This is actually a traffic question. MIPA has reviewed the impacts, the traffic impacts here, and will you be considering, taking that into consideration? That's the first question. The second is, will your traffic analysis also include the intersection of traffic and pedestrians, and make recommendations for pedestrian and cyclists?
Yeah, absolutely. So the MIPA question, so we'll take a look at, again, a lot of the calculations that that are in the report. So MIPA has pretty specific standards for submitting through MIPA. So we'll make sure that we definitely take a look at the calculations that are in the report to see if they meet those thresholds or not. And we'll also take a look at any findings that MIPA has produced as part of this project. And then the second question, I apologize, but it was, pedestrian facilities, correct? With vehicles and pedestrian conflicts?
Cycling, off-site issues.
Yep, and so we'll definitely take a look and see if any are proposed as part of this project. And if not, a lot of our analysis and review of materials has to do with conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians, vehicles and bicycles, and then also what the existing facilities are in the area. And if we believe the report didn't adequately propose, facilities connecting to other facilities that are existing, we will definitely make that recommendation.
One more thing, if we proceed with either firm, I'd like to get a list of the specific individuals who are working on each of these sections, these disciplines, and a schedule of their additional services rates. We have those in advance of, and that we approve any substitutions, or can request substitutions if we're not satisfied with the performance.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll move on to the next firm. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
We'll move on to Weston and Sampson. Is there a representative?
Yes, hello, good evening. I'm Darren Kirchin from Weston and Sampson. I'm here with my colleague, James Pearson. We have a brief slide presentation that you were going to run through. So if it's acceptable to the board, we'll share that in review.
Hold on, I would need to give you rights.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, you should be all set.
Okay, I'll share that. All right, hopefully that's up for everyone. So thank you all for talking with us this evening. So I'm representing our team from Weston and Sampson. We'll be discussing Cell Signaling Technologies site. We were actually on site last week, grabbed a quick shot of the some of the bedrock outcropping and tennis courts that are existing, as well as providing an initial review of the applicant's drawings, including the center drawing. So we're going to just do a brief presentation about our firm, doing introductions, describing our qualifications and peer review services, and then just running through briefly 2 example projects. So Weston Sampson is an East Coast firm headquartered in Reading, Massachusetts, with multiple satellite offices across New England. We have about 850 professionals, mostly in engineering, including architects and planners, among other technical specialists. So just briefly covering some of our discipline areas, and we'll focus on the highlighted ones that most apply to this project. Transportation certainly will be key, stormwater, site civil. We have those engineers in-house, as well as architecture and landscape architecture. Also above the site civil, we do have geotechnical engineers, as well as hydrogeologists. As when we discussed with Mark this project, I understand there's a geothermal component that requires review. So from here, we'll just go through just brief introductions about myself and James Pearson. So I'm, again, Darren Kirchen. I'm a team leader at Weston Sampson. I'm a professional engineer in Massachusetts in environmental engineering. I've done peer reviews for the last several years, mostly in Massachusetts or various towns. We're currently serving the town Mansfield and Hopkinton, as well as Cohasset, among other municipalities. James introduce himself, and then we'll go through some of our team members who we've included some resumes of our staff in our proposal documents.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. I'll just introduce myself briefly. Again, I'm James Pearson. You can see a much younger photo of me in the slide there. But I'm a civil engineer. I'm a technical leader who specializes in site development, stormwater, and utility design and construction. I have over 20 years of experience in my field. I'm a licensed professional engineer in 6 states, and throughout my career, I've performed site design work for both private and municipal clients for projects ranging from residential subdivisions and commercial site developments, and then on the municipal side to DPW facilities and water treatment plants. I started doing peer reviews for municipal clients at around 2011. At this point in my career in Massachusetts specifically, I've done engineering peer review for at least 15 different towns and cities. My reviews have been done for various types of land use applications, but primarily for zoning and planning boards and also for conservation commissions. So it really can be said that I'm really familiar with the permitting and technical review process, both from the perspective of a design engineer representing an applicant and also as a review engineer representing a municipal board. I also happen to be a Beverly resident, and I live about 10 minutes away from this particular site. The principal of my group, Tony Zerilli, who's pictured here, he lives in Gloucester, in the Magnolia area of Gloucester. So if we do this work for you, you will have folks who are geographically very close. I would also say, you know, at Weston Sampson, I'm Darren and I, we're not alone. We have many other engineers, planners, environmental scientists, geologists, geotechnical engineers, and other professionals in-house who can say similar things about their own credentials and their experience when it comes to peer review. So really, you know, depending on the needs of the particular board or the particular project, we can create a customized review team that covers pretty much whatever technical area that may be of interest. And generally speaking, we can do that in-house. So without further ado, then I'll just I'll kick it back to Darren, and he can take you through the rest of the information we have to share with you tonight.
Great. Well, thank you, James. And just to highlight some additional staff that we have listed here, we have Jim Reardon, who's a planner, and I've worked very closely with him on peer reviews across Eastern Massachusetts. We have, again, additional site civil engineers in Reading and Foxborough in various offices in Eastern Massachusetts. There was a potential, and we have as an optional task in our proposal, some wetlands evaluation. So I just highlighted one of our staff, again in Reading, Devin Herrick, who I work closely with, is certified as a wetland scientist. And then in the traffic transportation realm, Doug Osler is also a PE. So In terms of some of the benefits that Weston Sampson can provide, we have both experience in peer review assignments as well as working in the town, which I'll get into. We've done peer reviews for decades all across Eastern Massachusetts and New England in general, as well as having multiple disciplines all under one roof, which really benefits our projects and work for planning boards, COMCOMs, zoning boards across Massachusetts, just to be able to have the staff in-house just meets the applicant's deadlines and tight schedules that usually these peer reviews will have. So focusing in on our municipal experience and specifically at Manchester by the Sea, I've been involved with our landscape architects on the Pine Street Athletic Field project, which is photographed on the lower right. That both had environmental components because it was a closed Mass DEP site that we coordinated on, as well as the landscape architect and just general aesthetics of the facility. We've reviewed some of the zoning maps, which is shown here. And our staff, including some of our planners, are actually work on planning boards across New England. We review, we audit sometimes regulations and bylaws, as well as developing, as requested by towns and cities, additional bylaws and updates, especially as technology changes and new materials and technologies are required, especially for stormwater components as they age out and are no longer available, making sure that the latest information is in every town's bylaws. So for this specific project, as you have from our proposal, and I'll just briefly cover some of these items, we're going to initially start with a completeness review, just reviewing that the documentation we have from the applicant covers all the requirements. Once we've confirmed that, and if we need to request additional information, we'll begin that review, all documentation. We understand that there'll be multiple planning board hearings covering various topics. So we'll be reviewing those with our subject area experts. Typically, we'll have one consistent project manager, in this case, which will be me, with our technical experts, either in traffic or site civil, or landscape architecture or architecture, depending on what the topic will be. And then we've listed as optional tasks like additional site visits, and then depending on how many conditions are required from the planning board, a special permit. We have supported municipalities with construction phase observation and documentation of work, as well as for stormwater. We're currently supporting the town of Hopkinton with weekly SWIP inspections for a 10-acre residential development. So just quickly running through two additional projects that we've worked on. One is for the town of Cohasset, also a coastal town in southern Massachusetts. We've done multiple peer reviews for the town, and we'll just highlight one of them, 124 and 87 Elm Street. This was an old motel hotel right on Cohasset Harbor, located in an overlaid zoning district, which had specific design guidelines. So we reviewed multiple subject areas. This is a rendering of the applicant's proposed redevelopment, which is a mixed-use condo and commercial development, as well as a new public park overlooking Cohasset Harbor. So for this peer review, we looked at bylaw compliance, traffic elements and transportation, including parking and site circulation. We looked at the commercial and retail space, as well as residential based on all the requirements of the Cohasset bylaws. We looked at site plan layout and public realm. There was an affordable housing component to this that our planners reviewed. And then we looked at architecture and landscape architecture. I won't go into all the review criteria, but we did look at zoning bylaws. As I mentioned, some of the design standards that Cohasset had in the specific district, and then the special permit requirements. And then lastly, I'll just quickly cover one other project we did for the city of Framingham. Was a residential development as well. We looked at the traffic impact reports. We've reviewed stormwater and site plan. There was an abutting MCP site, which is the Massachusetts contingency plan, so a contaminated site because of some of the neighboring properties were industrial. So we reviewed that information with our licensed site professionals. On the traffic side, we reviewed intersectional site distances, the ISDs, and recommended adjusting some of the design speeds down, especially because there are student pedestrian uses nearby. We also looked at the sight lines based on some of the landscaping and snow placement, and made recommendations to adjust some of those locations to ensure that there would be vehicular sight lines to other traffic and pedestrians and bicycle traffic. And that is that corner clearance item. So with that, we'll take any questions, and thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. You currently working in the town?
Yeah, so our landscape architects supported that Pine Street athletic field. I just was talking with them today. I believe they're in the process of working on another field in town, I believe Sweeney Field.
Okay. Any questions from the board? It's pretty thorough.
Similar list of questions from before. Thank you for the presentation. I didn't see, you had your team shown on the screen. I missed if you were bringing an LA to the team. Do you have a landscape architect?
Oh, yep, so I actually sit in our Boston office with the bulk of our landscape architects, so we would have that capability in-house, and some of them actually live in Beverly, so when we were working on that athletic field on Pine Street, our landscape architects were able to perform site visits as needed.
Okay.
So we have, landscape architecture is covered, so we did see lighting is going to be a major component of this project, as well as the aesthetics.
And how about the ecological review of the biohabitats report? How would you approach that?
Sure, yep, so we have wetland scientists also in-house, so we would have them be reviewing that information. We listed it as optional because I believe it wasn't in the performance standards specifically, but was a concern. So yeah, we would have our wetland scientists focusing on any of the ecological considerations.
Okay. And for stormwater analysis, we're obviously interested in quality, quantity, resiliency, and also just benefits of green infrastructure. This is a really kind of extraordinary and special site. Will you be evaluating, talk about your approach to evaluating stormwater management and the potential benefits there?
Yeah, Darren, do you want me to take that one?
That would be, that'd be great. Thank you.
So as I mentioned, being more on the civil and stormwater side, I would probably be the one responsible for doing that review. And my approach typically to that review, first and foremost, is to identify the criteria that are applicable. Many communities have by default adopted the Massachusetts stormwater standards, even for projects that are not close to wetlands. So we'd be looking to confirm that those standards apply to the projects, and we would also be looking to do a thorough analysis of the town's bylaws that are applicable to the project for this particular type of application. So once we've identified those criteria, those will be the primary basis of our review. And then as a secondary basis of our review, we would certainly be interested in knowing what specific items in addition to those might be of interest for the board to have us look at. And, so that would kind of establish sort of a secondary list of things that we could give some attention to. So I hope that answers it.
Thank you. Just the last couple of questions on, you listed site visit as optional in your services. Do you think that it's optional, and what is your approach to needing a site visit or not? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we usually try to take direction from the board on that. Some boards are not interested in paying us to do a site visit, which we respect. Some boards do want us to do a site visit, which we certainly understand, and we stand ready to do so. So really, we just listed it as optional primarily because we're trying to give you guys a better breakdown to sort of understand, the cost for different tasks and things of that nature. But we're fully prepared and happy to do it if that's what the board wishes for us to do.
Okay. And you've done a lot of municipal work. You provided several examples in your proposal. Do you have a project that compares to this at all in terms of the You know, there's the buildings, but there's also the site development, quite an extensive amount of site development on a badly disturbed site. Do you have something that's equivalent? So this is not an industrial project or a very urban project, just interested if you've had a similar relevant project you could speak to.
Yeah, well, within the last month or so, I did a peer review for a large commercial redevelopment project in Seekonk. I think that was somewhat comparable in the sense that the scale was similar to this, and there were a lot of existing site features that kind of had to factor into how the site was redeveloped. I think the one thing that might be a little different is that it wasn't anything like a rock quarry. If we want to talk about a project that involved a rock quarry, we do have another project that we did peer review for a few years back in South Hadley. That one was actually an aggregate quarry, and what the developer proposed in that case was to put in a residential subdivision. And that particular project, I do recall, presented quite a number of obstacles. So we definitely had a very deep bench of professionals of different disciplines reviewing that one. So I gave you those two examples mainly because I was trying to give you one example that's recent and then one example that deals with something going on in a rock quarry.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Any others?
First.
Stolberg.
I just want to continue on the site visit. As we compare your pricing to other proposals, is that for one site visit by one person? And we need to think about how many optional site visits we might need. Can you just explain how you came at that pricing?
Darren, would you like to speak to that?
Sure, James. Yep. So we had as an optional site visit just for this preliminary initial review, just the project manager, myself, and James doing generally that site walk, just to kind of get the lay of the land, collect a significant amount of photos, photo document the conditions. Certainly if the wetland scientist needed to come on board, that would be a separate site visit, and that's included in that additional task, which has up to 2 site visits for a wetland scientist. Because typically this is a desk study of the applicant's information for the initial peer review. Those we certainly have done site visits and met with the consultants for the applicant, as well as we get into the technical issues, obviously with the permission of the planning board. So we can always add, and our entire scope is on a time and material basis, so we typically kind of first identify our peer review comments, suggestions, questions for the applicant, and then have a revised documentation, which may, if it's beneficial, we're certainly open to additional site visits.
Darren, in your proposal, I can't remember, it was you or BSC, you had 2 weeks notice to proceed, then 4 weeks before you would have the first peer review item. Is that sort of what you can do?
Yeah, that wasn't our scope, because of the various disciplines, and it would, certainly if we were awarded this work, we'll work closely with the town and planning board on scheduling if there's priority items that would be at the first hearing, because we know it's going to be divided up. Certainly traffic or transportation is first. That was our general schedule, just because of the nature and the number of different topics this is touching, including the geothermal, which will require geotechnical and hydrogeological assessment.
Okay, yeah, so not to cut your review down, but I would like to get this going because I can see this stretching into June, with all the items. So that'll be appreciated. Any other questions, Sarah?
Are you currently, we should ask this of the other applicant, are you currently doing any other work for cell signaling?
For the applicant themselves?
For the
No.
applicant, okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
So there's no
we
conflict
do
of
conflict of interest check,
Um,
and I'll I'll confirm that, but
That would be helpful, thank
We're
you.
doing
And then
work.
are you able, can you make sure you give us a schedule of your rates for each of the professionals? Third, when, in the planning board presentations, will one of you be the spokesperson for your colleagues, or will your experts be here for us? How, and here might be virtual, I understand.
Sure, and I know today's meeting was, we were requested to come in person, just on the shorter notes, we weren't able to do that, but for the March 11th hearing, we would be in person, and we do use hybrid technology on Zoom as well. So for each subject area, we would have the project manager, which is going to be me for this project, and then the subject area expert. So if it was, say, civil and stormwater, that would be James would be presenting with me. And then if it was traffic, we'd have Doug and others. I manage multiple projects that are multidisciplinary, so I can't speak to many of the engineering issues that we encounter. Though I do know the planning board definitely benefits from having the experts at the hearings to be able to answer questions both from the board themselves and the public.
Okay, and then my third question is you detail basically for stormwater, stormwater and civil traffic and special permit performance, sort of a review of the submittal, a review of the submittals performance, and ensuring that the submittal is using acceptable standards. But I think we want to make sure that we all, I think, including the applicant, want the benefit of, you know, the best project, not just one that meets the standards. Can you, and that's the first question, how do you help us and collectively get to the best project possible? Because I don't see that in your ABC for each of these sections. And then the second question is, to get there in these projects, there's also this kind of an iterative process a lot of times where you review the applicant's materials, you have some questions, you make some suggestions, and then they come back with a revised plan. Can you speak to, do you expect that to be part of the work, and how would that affect budget, or the proposed budget, which I think only anticipates that first review?
Sure, yeah, so I can speak to both of those. So on the outcomes, so there's certainly the letter of the law, the bylaws and requirements there. So the planning board has wide jurisdiction. We also use the industry standards. So when we identify something that's not conforming, or we have a suggestion for an improvement to the project, be it in stormwater architecture, geotechnical or landscape architecture. I know for Cohasset, for example, we recommended the applicant use native plantings, working with the Conservation Commission there that had a listing of native plantings instead of using non-native plantings to have, especially in a coastal area, having more resilient plantings. In terms of the iterative process, we do anticipate that this, especially based on the size, that there will be follow-up review and supplemental peer review. We did not scope that out because it's unclear what subject areas those will be in. It could be all of the subject areas have significant rework from the applicant. It'll depend on the level of compliance that the applicant has met with the bylaws currently and industry standards, including the stormwater handbook that James will be looking at, and others. So it's just unclear what the scope would be, and we would just develop, which we've done on similar projects, is we usually have an initial review, kind of get to an understanding with the applicant of what is needed based on planning board comments, and then have an amendment for follow-up reviews as needed, either usually one or two. And we've also supported planning boards on developing orders of condition as needed. We're reviewing them, and then as things move into construction, supporting the planning board there.
I have one other question. I didn't think of this in the last one, but, do you typically, once a project is in construction, do you offer services to ensure performance?
It's very much at the direction of the town-specific or city-specific planning board. So for the town of Hopkinton, for example, we just completed a special or major site plan permit application and stormwater permit application. For the stormwater piece, the town had requested that we stay on and provide construction phase services. So we certainly have that experience. Projects that we design in-house for our municipal and state clients as well. We have a lot of resident reps and field engineers with experience observing contractors' work and photo documenting it and providing daily logs. So depending on what the planning board would like during the construction phase, we can certainly provide field engineering services and observation of the work.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Chris?
So I asked this before, I'll ask it again too, like Laura. We have, the zoning bylaw has certain performance standards that we expect the project to fulfill. And we're hoping you could organize the peer review to be coordinated with those criteria, so it'll be easier for us to see how the project meets our objectives in the bylaw. Is that something you could do?
Yeah, we certainly can, and we have had experience organizing things in that manner. You know, some of the recent work, for instance, that I've done within the last 2 months for the town of Dayton, for instance, the way we organized that review was, you know, we did it as a response letter that, you know, listed a bylaw standard, and then underneath it indicated what our comment was relative to that standard and the project's compliance with it. And we kind of went down through the list like that, so that you could easily, you know, map out how it is that the project was in performance with the standards. Darren, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that's actually one of our strengths as well, is how we organize our documentation and peer review. Just as James mentioned, we follow the bylaws. We'll typically even list out the bylaw requirement and the performance standards that we're comparing to, or the stormwater handbook requirement. We like to cite. It definitely helps for the applicant so they're not confused as to what we're referencing or why we're coming up with a comment. We like to put in very clear language, and then as this iterative process moves forward too, we color code our responses and we track what's an open suggestion or comment that hasn't been resolved, what has been closed. For some towns, we've developed matrix tables of all the comments if they've gotten, if you know things get several pages long, it's difficult to track in a memo. We can tabulate the information as well. And actually, I did have a question on the performance standards as well, just because this area is like outside of the main part of town, not in the historic design area. I guess for that aesthetic performance standard, we would have our architects be reviewing the plans. We have the renderings from the applicant if we were selected. I guess how does the board approach the aesthetics performance standard, like in a sort of blank slate wooded area with relatively minimal neighbors and abutting properties?
We've asked for one thing, which is for the project to be shielded visually from Route 128. So it's not a comment on the quality of the architecture, but on its ability to not impact the kind of wooded experience as you're traveling up to Cape Ann on 128. So that, I think, would be part of the evaluation.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you. So Mark sent out several requests for proposals and got these two firms that responded, and we both met, and I'm wondering if the board feels comfortable tonight to pick one of these firms so we can get this obserway. Sarah?
I think it'd be helpful to just make sure that cell signaling doesn't have a strong objection. No, you think that input? It is absolutely our decision, but I don't know, I'd be open to hearing from Cell Signaling.
I did copy Mark Lovsky on the emails with the two proposals, so I don't know if he's online.
Mark's out of the country. I think.
Okay.
Thank you for copying us. We did have an opportunity to review them. Yeah, I think we feel that both firms are eminently capable and qualified. We noticed some differences. I think we did have an opinion as to which proposal was superior, but I'm not sure that matters.
I guess more it's like you're not in dispute with one of them or something like that, okay.
Yeah, our firm has worked with both firms, both highly respected firms, so no issue with the qualifications. But
I guess the second question is that, so just the process will be that we will, there'll be a money held in escrow. I think that the client will pay the bills out of that, and that when I review these proposals, it seems particularly Weston Sampson's proposal is basically saying it's phase one work and that there's gonna be additional, I can't imagine that what they've proposed is sufficient. So, so that the money, the initial amount received from Cell Signaling might be 24,000 or whatever, but then that's probably going to be more than that.
Yes, and as we discussed before, oftentimes there's an initial estimated amount, and then as the review progresses, there'll be more detail needed on, again, until there's really a technical review of what was submitted. We won't know whether there's additional study that's necessary, or maybe it's just some adjustments. Again, even on large projects, some require just some minor massaging and some require some major revisions, so which require a lot more time of everybody who's involved. So there's really no way of knowing at this point, but
so my question to the board is, do we feel comfortable in making a pick tonight? And I certainly do, but I'll take any objections. Otherwise, I'll take a roll call vote on the firms.
May I just ask a process? Are we gonna, do we have the candidates on the web? I know it's a public meeting anyhow, but are we gonna discuss with them here, or what's the process?
We can just discuss.
Okay.
I don't think there's any.
It's a little different from from my day job, but that's fine.
Any issues with that? Yeah, so who wants to go first, or do you want, okay.
I would suggest Weston Sampson. I just thought they came in more prepared. And I think we want to have a team that comes in prepared. And I think either firm can do the work, but I'm looking for somebody who helps us work through the process, and I want to know who the team is. And I think when you present to somebody, you say who your team is.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have no objection to that. I just, I think it might be good if we could somehow get a better handle on the money part, because as you said, that seemed like a phase one figure, and we would have to tack on a lot more than with the other firm. And I'm just, do you have any guesstimate, Mark, of, you see it as an extra 20,000, 30,000?
Again, like I said, it can vary upon once they look at the documents, and I mean, as you can see in that box, there's a lot. There's a lot to look at, and if the quality is really good, and it doesn't require a lot of additional requests for information that's not provided, and given the firms that they've used, I mean, I'm not as familiar with their regular engineer, but some of the other firms I am,
The applicant is paying for this.
Right.
No, I understand that, and
not that,
yeah,
shouldn't be concerned, but,
yeah,
it's it'll be a function of how much detail we wanna dig into, and we say that's not enough. Some of it'll be a function of our questions and concerns, so
And
I
some,
understand that it's not a,
yeah, and generally, we don't go beyond, let's say they deposit $24,000 and they work through those funds. You know, I will talk to the applicant about, and get an estimate about how much further, let's say, there's still some traffic issues to work out, or there's still, some drainage needs to get reworked, and that'll have to get reviewed. And so they'll usually you have the applicant approve, you know, a rough estimate and submit the additional funds so that your engineers can keep going. So that's kind of typically the process, and we'll pay them as the bills come in. And obviously, if there's any sort of major objection, usually we do hear from, in the past, I've heard from the applicant questioning certain bills or why something's taking a long time. But with both these firms, I've used over the years, some of them before, so.
okay, so I think we have two vote, go ahead.
I would also agree with Weston Sampson, and I just want to say my justification for the record. Based on the proposals and reading the proposals, theirs was the more informative in terms of the staff who are staffing the work and in terms of the kind of relevant project experience. I saw a number of municipal proposals that were relevant. I understood their scope of their work and their experience better than I did on reading the BSC proposal. I do want to say both firms are extraordinarily competent and qualified, so that is not what's at issue here, but I think that this proposal by Weston and Sampson and their performance tonight was better geared toward the scope of this project and what we're after. I would want to, I think it's very important that a site visit is performed as part of their work. I don't see that as optional, and I would want to see that performed by each discipline on the team. So I'm certainly, you know, I think it's fine for the project manager to go out there and get the lay of the land with his kind of core team, but I think all the disciplines need to perform their own site observation before they can really dig into the proposal.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Chris, any comments?
No comment.
No vote?
So I'd vote for Weston and Sampson also.
My only hesitation is I just thought it was a little disingenuous not to include a site visit in the initial list of tasks. But other than that, I support that.
Christina? Yeah, I thought their application was very comprehensive. I also vote for Weston and Sampson, so I think it's unanimous.
I do think we need to make sure we get the schedule of time of the rates by professional and expense markups if you've got a sub or anything like that.
Okay, thank you for coming, and we look forward to getting a notice to proceed out to you tomorrow to get this thing rolling.
And thank you to both firms for taking time to respond to us.
I don't think they're here anymore.
Oh, yeah, I think they're muted.
Okay.
Thank you all for your feedback. I appreciate it, and you know, hopefully we work with the town of Manchester by the Sea soon.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank
Very
you.
much. We look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Okay, let's just move on to our favorite subject.
What could that be?
Let's talk about the MBTA task force update and what's gonna be happening this weekend.
Okay, so
Let's start with
this
you.
Saturday at 10 o'clock, there is a community forum jointly sponsored by the planning board and the MBTA task force. It'll be at the media room in the high school. And we have a sort of an agenda, and Mary, I'm sorry that, I guess you were somehow left out of the loop, I guess you were out sick.
Yeah, so I saw there was an email that there was gonna be a meeting the next day and I was sick. And so I've emailed over the past few days and I haven't heard back if there was a meeting, because I never saw a posted meeting and I haven't seen any documentation, so I don't know what happened.
So we didn't have a quorum for a subcommittee meeting, so we just have a informal, I don't know, planning meeting of some of the members of both boards. And we did sort of set out an agenda for how the meeting would proceed. I'd be happy to send it to you. There are a number of presenters. We're gonna have Ron do the introduction to this thing. Mark is gonna play a big role in it as well, in explaining what zoning is. And then there'll be individual topics. Sarah Mellish would like to talk about what is meant by right development as opposed to by special permit. And then we'll be discussing each of the zoning districts in town and what the requirements are, allowed uses and dimensional requirements for each. But I will send you what we've got so far.
Yeah, because I guess as a planning board member, I feel a little uncomfortable going into this, but you said it's jointly sponsored by the planning board and the task force. And at least as a planning board member, I have no idea what the agenda is, like you said, who's speaking, what the topics are. So I'm in the dark, so I
Okay, we'll make sure.
you know, and then I tried to listen to some of the last meeting, planning board meeting that I couldn't attend. And I don't know if it's gonna happen, but it said then the task force is gonna present something at the end. So if the planning board could get that narrative before it happens, because again, this is being presented as if the planning board either is on board or is in the know, and I'm not, so.
I thought we were not going, are we going to discuss the MBTA? I thought we were just gonna keep it to zoning.
Yeah, it's
and
just gonna be
what's-
zoning in general. At the very end, one of the districts, however, is gonna be an overlay MBTA district, just roughly what we're talking about. That'll be a separate breakout meeting for people who want to discuss it. But unless people ask specific questions about MBTA zoning, it's not really gonna be a focus of the meeting.
So I guess then why is it a joint planning board task force if it's really just planning board agenda?
Because both boards wanted to sponsor it together.
And the need was identified by the task force as a need for, I think the initial comment tonight was that people don't understand zoning. That it's hard to understand and people don't always understand what their own zone is and how to interpret this. So it's an effort to educate folks, and I think we have talked about it at a number of our meetings here as a joint meeting, so.
No, I understand we've talked about it. My point is that the agenda has changed, and so now if it's not really being the state overlay districts discussed, I'm just wondering why it is jointly. But, you know, I'll get the agenda, I'll get what is being discussed, and then I'll know.
Sue?
I don't think it's changed since, when you say the agenda has changed, I don't think it has, since we've been speaking about it at our planning board meetings. And I'm sorry that you missed, there were 2 separate email chains, each containing several emails, and you were copied on all of them. And so the date was set with no response from you, and that's why it was just a working group run by Mark and Tiffany. And there was not a quorum from either the task force or the planning board or anywhere else.
So I was just on one email chain saying there was a meeting the next day.
No, there were 2. This was the
So
first
to be
one.
clear, I was on one, and I think it just would have been good to get some documentation of what was discussed, because, I mean, I don't know, maybe other planning board members know, or maybe,
So you
It's
were
okay
on
to
the
go.
first chain that began on, let's see, the 13th, and then there was a separate chain on the 15th. And you were on, there was a total of about 7 emails between the two. And if you would like a copy.
I would love a copy, thank you. So all this is scheduling the meeting, so I don't know what the different chains are. I guess I'm just asking for, yeah, there's no data here, it's just scheduling the meeting. I was just asking for some information, so I don't feel like I go into this blindly.
I guess I don't feel like you go into it blindly because you have been participating in the planning board meetings when we've talked about having this and the purpose of it.
So not to beat the point, but this is the first time I've heard what the agenda is and who is speaking, and I do not recall either listening to last planning board meeting or prior meetings that I've been at when we said, okay, this person will speak on this topic, I don't know where all of this stuff happens.
That assigning tasks to individuals happened at the working group that unfortunately you missed the email setting up.
So again, yes, so I think it's important as a planning board to discuss that. That's all I'm saying. It's great if individual planning board members want to get together and discuss things. They're not the decision makers then of what we're bringing forth to the public. So, we're talking about it now. I just have nothing in front of me.
Well, we have 2 zoning districts that we don't have anyone assigned to speak about, B and C, I believe.
Yeah, B
So
or C.
if anyone else on the planning board would like to just give the few current zoning rules about one of those districts, that would be great, a great way to participate.
Sure, I can do both, or I can do B. I thought that's what Mark was presenting, was the zoning districts.
I think what we did is we split up each district to have one person just speak about that one district. So you can speak about the basic uses allowed in that district, what the dimensional requirements are, if there's anything special about that district that makes it unique from some of the other, let's say it's a residential district that might allow something unique or special, you can talk about that. So just to, so that people understand kind of why we have as many districts as we have. And it's kind of the educational piece of the meeting, to try and.
So are you gonna discuss like when zoning came in 1950, 60, whenever it came in, and, are you doing the history of it and why we designated the different size lots and things like that?
No, I don't think we're necessarily going back into a big, long history. I mean, it's already.
Or why decisions were made.
Yeah, that's already happened. So I think what we're trying to do is just inform the public if they have questions about where they are, about their district, about how it, their neighborhood might work. A lot of people really don't understand zoning as well as everybody in this room, so.
Are we bringing the use table? Are we gonna have a
Yes,
use table
absolutely,
there?
yes, use table and a dimensional table, yeah.
So it'll be there on a board or,
On a board, we're gonna break this up into different, so every district is gonna have a table with a member standing next to it with a map of the district and a dimensional table and a use table, so you can.
who's doing that? The individual person?
No,
Or-
we'll have all that ready for you.
Okay.
Yeah, so who's doing the districts? Like, who's like A and E and D, like who's doing that?
I'm A. I thought we were each gonna prepare our own thing.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
prepare
yeah.
them. But we'll have the materials ready for you.
So I guess, Ron, can I speak? So I've listened to a decent amount of the task force, and there was, a few meetings, and Sarah Melish, brought this up. This isn't how, she was very concerned about what was being projected to the public. And she said, communications subgroup needs to bring it to the whole task force. So I don't even think that's happened. I mean, she mentioned that, but I mean, we, as a co-sponsor of this, don't have any narrative, what we're telling people. Like, there's nothing in writing. We're all coming up with our own, and I just don't feel like this is, if we're trying to come up with a unified front, where is it? Like, I mean, we should be able to reiterate this and print it out, and this should be something that we're basically reading, that we're all on the same page. I feel like if we have, and it's fine if we all have the different, districts, that's fine, but I feel like we all need to have the same script. Otherwise, everyone's gonna get a different story, and we should be able to hand this out. If someone can stay 2 minutes, you should have the same speech going. This is, what Sarah mentioned, this was weeks ago, that this is not the way to come forward and have a meeting and project to the public. We need approval, and we've never talked about a script or what's being presented.
So the intent is to just what's existing and nothing proposed, just, what's in each, from the way I understand it, what's in each district, what you can do, can you have residential, can you not, and what you're allowed to build in that district.
That's right.
That's all we're reiterating, and I think we can all, it doesn't sound like we won't be on the same page, because it's law, it's written. So I don't think, unless somebody misinterprets the use table or the dimensions, I think it should be okay.
You think it's gonna be okay, but that's not what the point was. The point was that we're all on the same page, and without a script, we're not all on the same page. I've listened to people on the ZBA talk about, I've heard Greg talk about, 3-family by right. It isn't, it's an existing building. We leave out some narrative, so I just don't understand why we can't all have a script and everyone be on the same page with the script. I mean, this has been mentioned in the task force meetings over and over, and I guess we're still not there. I mean, today on the meeting, no one could really understand the law and by right. So, I mean, we're all not on the same page.
But we're not proposing any task, we're just proposing what exists. We're not talking about what we're gonna do, or what the task force may or may not propose, correct?
Correct.
So,
So
Sarah.
I think that the intent all along has been to help residents understand their own zones in an informal way. I think the working group, I only was there for a short time, I forget what was happening, but anyway, the intent was that it's nice to welcome people. That's kind of a standard practice, say here's what we're doing. But if it's an opportunity for dialogue about, oh, I thought this was the case, guess what, it's not. Like, let's check that. This is I think of it as I don't want to say a cocktail party, but a conversation. And what's the worst thing that's going to happen? What's the bad thing that's going to happen here? What are you worried about? Because we've got hardworking volunteers who have and hardworking staff who have put this together. Let's trust each other to accomplish a collective better understanding of zoning in our town. And I think that was the goal. And what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Maybe I'll.
The worst thing
no,
that's gonna happen.
But if I say the wrong thing, if I say something's allowed in a zone, and then we collectively understand that you go to a document, a use table, and you look it up and you say, oh, guess what? I learned something here. It's not allowed. Let's discuss what that means. It seems to me that it's a really great opportunity to come together on a Saturday and do that kind of work and have the documents printed out. And I think we've got people who have worked hard on it to come in at Monday, whatever day today is, almost Tuesday, and be worried about some catastrophe. It seems.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we write, each person who has their district, write a script of what they plan to talk about, and let's send it to one person to kind of make sure that they're all
Send it to Mark.
conform.
Mark.
Yeah.
Well, just playing that out, Ron, if people object to what another person's saying, how are we gonna work through that?
Well, we're just talking about the rules and what's
Okay.
there, it's nothing, it's all factual, it should, if there's any fact discrepancy, I think Mark should be able.
Yeah, well, I think maybe if everyone, just like, just in talking, about it right now, puts together a brief description of the district that you're talking about. I have, I don't know the numbers, but I have the district that's the most rural on the south side of the town, and it's primarily residential, single family, although there's some scale, some sort of general description. Then what the use requirements are. Well, that district, it's all single family, you can maybe have an accessory apartment with a special permit, or a home business with a special, you can have these things, but that's what it is. These are the dimensional requirements, the lot size, setbacks, etc. And then any other unique characteristics of the community. Maybe there's some unique uses that are allowed there that aren't allowed elsewhere, or requirements for review of something, or if you want to build something. So I think it doesn't need to be a whole lot more complicated than that. And maybe if we each person, we kind of outline our zone in the same way, and I think that's what you're talking about, is trying to have some uniformity in the description.
I am simply asking for information, and I don't have it, so I'm looking, we have 7 zoning districts, so is each planning board member taking a district?
Some of the task force members agreed that they would take a district. So Richard
And Mark's
Smith,
gonna do one, right?
yeah, Mark's doing one also.
Okay, that strikes me as odd, but, so, and I don't know where the narrative came from that something catastrophic, or, when I go into a meeting saying I'm presenting, I like to have a little more information of what's actually gonna happen. So it's not about fear of something catastrophic happening or somebody saying the wrong word. It's saying, if we're putting together a public meeting as a planning board, we need to be a little professional about it and have some sort of, at least outline for the planning board members. Another question I had was listening to the last meeting is, it was discussed spending $1,800 on visuals, and then that conversation never got a vote. So I don't know, is that happening? Are we spending that amount of money on this?
No.
Okay, so we're not.
The board voted not to, and there's not time to. The board didn't vote not to, we just didn't.
But the signals were very clear.
Yeah, just didn't move forward
We
with a
didn't
vote
even need a
to
vote.
appropriate it, because no one seemed to really want to spend the funds. And we were able to produce, I was able to produce some maps from the GIS that Ron was able to print, and we will use that as a kind of a large format zoning map that we will be able to tape up on a wall or on a whiteboard, so that we can, people can see kind of in a big scale how the town is zoned. And then at each of the tables, when we do break out, we'll have a smaller zoning map, we'll have the use chart available for people want to ask more specific questions.
Does the explanation of the district come out, is that the breakout session, or is it you're not speaking publicly like this is District E and this is 2 acre, that's not happening publicly, you're just going to a breakout session?
Well, so I'm gonna do a sort of an outline of our zoning bylaw, how it's organized.
That's public, you're gonna make that as a.
Yeah, that'll be for everybody. There are 12 sections, and
Okay.
number section 4 is break it into different districts, and we'll be talking about that later. Number 5 is dimensional requirements.
So it'll be, whenever questions come up during the breakout session, it'll be a prepared
Well, there'll be
thing.
I think there'll be a question and answer session after the presentations, after the introduction and overview of all this. And then we'll break into these breakout session, yeah.
Okay, so is there an agenda, has an
Yeah,
agenda?
you've got a copy of it.
I do, okay.
It'd be good to send that out to
We
them.
Yeah,
don't,
we'll
as a
send it out to
board.
everybody, yeah, we get Mark and some.
All right, I didn't read that, so, okay.
So I guess the other thing is, my final point on this, is that we have a timeline, and the task force is supposed to meet with the planning board. We've never met, but we're having a joint meeting together. I just think it's a little backwards, right? So we're supposed to meet, and we're presenting something, but we've actually never met together, so it seems a
Yeah, So
little.
that's something I want to discuss after we're done with this, about this meeting, and, but I guess the task force wanted to do this with us, I guess, so.
Yeah.
And we're not really.
I think it'd be a bit presumptuous for the task force to present a
Zoning.
forum on zoning.
Right, right, no, I hear you.
That's why I question why the task force members are presenting the districts.
How'd that come, that just
That seems odd.
came about. So how many are left? Is everything covered, all the districts?
Yeah, I think we just.
Well, you're doing B, you said. So do we have someone for C?
Yeah, so.
I'll do C.
Okay.
So,
Who's doing A?
so again, are we getting up and speaking, or
No.
we're just at a
No,
table?
you're just at a
Just
table.
at a table. That's what
So
I
how do you
asked.
present it if people are going to different tables or?
You just stand there and answer the questions, I
Yeah,
assume,
sure.
that come up, and you have a cheat sheet.
Like what we did with the master, with our zoning applications.
So that's what I guess they're proposing.
And I guess my last point to one of your points was that feedback from that was that it was very confusing because people came up and asked different planning board members, I live on, you know, whatever street, what district am I in? And one planning board member said, you know, District A, and one planning board member said District C.
That's a
So-
very good point.
We don't really, we're not in sync, and so I know at least 4 people commented to me after that meeting being like,
We're
I
not
still
gonna
don't
be able
even
to
know.
tell them what district they're in,
So
right? We're not,
when people come in, there'll be computers, and they'll say, you can ask them, what's your address? They'll tell you, you can look it up on the computer on the website, on the Manchester website, and tell them you're in District A.
who's doing that?
There'll be greeters as we come in, as people come in. Tiffany mostly.
Now,
So it
another
changes
big
those.
important question, is there any cookies?
Yeah, they're.
Well, we don't know the answer to that
don't know yet.
because we don't know if refreshments are allowed in that room. Tiffany is working on
I have a
that.
big copy of that.
Have something.
So what time do we need to be there?
It said 9:15 in the last
By
email I just got.
9:30, I would say, yeah, 9:15 to 9:30.
Okay, so I think that's sort of understood. So we're gonna send you something, or cheat sheet kind of, or at least I will. I'll send you something on the LCD
Mhm.
that I think, as I understand it. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
All right.
All right. So, that's community forum, so joint meeting, so we're getting close to having a joint meeting with the task force, and the schedule Mark sent out had April 8th. So now that we've selected a peer reviewer, it looks like their first peer review session, which will be in 6 weeks, will also be April 8th. So I asked the task force if they could back up to the 22nd, haven't gotten a response,
22nd of what?
March.
So we haven't had a meeting yet to ask.
Yeah, we have a
Okay.
meeting Thursday.
So ask, well, first off, can planning board members,
That's a Thursday.
oh, I'm sorry,
Friday.
the Monday,
Yeah,
our regular Monday meeting, in the last meeting in March, because then we won't have cell signaling that time, and I thought it'd be a good time to have the task force, our
March
first initial.
25th.
So what day is it?
Monday, March 25th.
It would be our regular planning board meeting date, the second Monday in March. So it'd be a good date because we won't have cell signaling. That was what I was thinking, and it doesn't affect any of us because we're all scheduled to come anyway. So that was my thinking. Or if that doesn't work, I'm gonna ask the planning board if that Thursday, which would be April 8 plus 4, was it? April 12th, would we be willing to sit in on their meeting on the Thursday at whatever time
It's a
would be?
Friday.
I was gonna say, I don't think you're looking at the right dates.
April 12th is a Friday.
April 11th. So, let me ask the board, I think the board prefers meeting on a regular day and I would hope the task force would be amenable to that. Otherwise, how does the board feel if they say they can't do it, that we meet on that Thursday?
So the only, well, like not polling the board, it's hard to know, but Sarah Mellish generally has problems with Wednesday and Thursday meetings. But we'll let her, let's see what she says, and if it's just her,
Mhm.
we can probably meet.
I think we should stick with our regular meeting.
That's what I'd like to do.
But I think you have the wrong dates, I just wanna make sure. You said the 2nd.
Yeah, we meet on the second and fourth Thursday,
So which-
Mondays of the month,
So we have the 11th on the 25th.
Right, this will be the 25th.
25th, that's the right date. So, see
I will be
if you guys would be amenable for that, and that would be good.
March or the 25th of April?
March.
March.
And that will
I forgot we
kick,
have another task force member here.
Oh, she's thinking, town meeting is the 24th, right?
Of April.
April.
Right.
This is March.
I know, just making,
Just wanted to make sure that it wasn't the day, rollover day for town meeting.
no. No, so that was,
yeah, I'll be on Zoom, but that's okay.
that's fine. So we would do it here, and I don't know if we would have enough room for 9 more people, but, we'll have to figure it out.
If you set up the chairs, it's easy.
We'll be fine.
Okay.
You people, it's your meeting, you take the comfy chairs.
Oh, that's big of you, Ann.
I'll be on Zoom.
So, and then I would like some kind of draft, what we want to do at this meeting. Yeah, some kind of draft agenda
Okay,
from
well, by then
what we all kind of want to talk about, our initial meeting. Mary?
So, agreed. And I think I had emailed you this, Mark, and said we would discuss tonight. Now I didn't print it out for some reason. Your schedule of the planning board and task force meeting.
That rough schedule, that
Yes,
preliminary
yes.
schedule, yes.
Because I didn't see on there the actual date that the task force passes over the report to the planning board, and then the planning board has 2, 3, 4 meetings on it
Yes.
and a public hearings before it gets submitted to the state.
No,
So-
no,
I don't know whether it has to, I believe, get presented to the select board, and they're the ones that vote.
I
to
thought the
submit.
select board wasn't taking any action on this.
I think it's unlikely that the select board will take no action.
I was gonna say.
If I can put another negative in there.
So then do we need the time, are you saying that it first goes to the select board and then comes to the planning board?
I hope it goes to the planning board first and the planning board comes to the select.
Okay,
Yeah, and then I believe it gets voted to send to EOH,
So whatever it
see.
is.
whatever it is,
EOH,
for their 90-day review.
so do you think the select board would prefer that the planning board has public hearings before it goes to the select board? I mean, we need resident
Your public
input.
hearings are entirely up to you.
Okay, all right. So-
I don't believe there are public hearings required until there's a zoning proposal submitted prior to town meeting.
Okay, or public, or, just
I mean, all our
planning
meetings
board
are public.
and resident input. So I just didn't see those in that schedule and,
Right.
there's a definite pass-off period and it seemed like it was constantly in tandem, planning board and task force, and that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that was the first kind of pass out of the schedule, so that's for us to discuss further.
So the schedule doesn't allow for public hearings, is that what you're saying?
Well, it didn't have public hearings, they're public meetings. I mean, I don't know whether,
public
Yeah,
hearing,
so
but
I would agree, well, we do have the public hearing when we know what we're talking about, what we decide is the
Right.
best.
Well, you want to get the state to approve it before you go to a public hearing.
Will they approve it in
Yeah.
90?
Well, they say they will.
But what if the town doesn't want it? I mean, don't you want the input from the people before we send it
Well,
to
I
the
don't want
state?
to send something into the state and have the state say no.
But you haven't heard from the people yet.
Well, we'll hopefully
It kinda
we'll-
doesn't matter if the state says it,
well,
if the
hopefully
people
we're
say
hearing
no.
from the people all the way along.
Yeah, I
the
would
process.
say that we're getting a lot of engagement from the public now, and we will continue to. Imagine when we're meeting together. I mean, those are all public meetings. They're not specific public hearings, but the public is engaged. They're already engaged.
And
I don't agree at all.
We got, as a select board, a lot of good feedback when we had public hearings about the rotunda. And I think there's a difference between being a silent audience to a public meeting and having a public hearing where where people are encouraged to hear what's going on. I am speaking now as me, not as a member of anything. I have no idea what the rest of the select board would say, and I have no idea what the rest of the task force would say, but I think people appreciate having time to be heard, and I think we need to have some of that before we submit something to the state. And we don't have to take their advice. I mean, lots of people wanted to put the rotunda up on land, and we didn't want to, and we didn't. So, but I think it is again, me, Anne, thinks it's politically astute to have a public hearing with some graphics, some explanation, and an opportunity for people to be heard.
to Mary's point, how many meetings do you think we need to have jointly with the task force before it sort of becomes our baby? Is there any thought, maybe you don't want to answer that tonight, but we should, kind of figure out what we're doing here schedule-wise, because time's
It's gonna be
ticking.
hard to tell until after we have a concrete proposal that is reviewed by the board, because everyone here may have a different opinion on what's being submitted, so we may or may not get a consensus on moving forward. We may want to massage certain elements, but understand that schedule, although we may adjust it, we may have to add meetings to, other nights to get it done, is kind of backed up from our deadline date of the end of the year. So we kind of have to fit it into that timeline, but whether we have one joint meeting and one planning board meeting and it goes great, and we pass it off to the select board and they send it off, or we have 3 joint meetings and 3 planning board meetings and we have 2 public hearings, we still have to try and get it done within that same time period. So, it may be
Would the select board pass off, would that require planning board members to attend that meeting, or is that just your self, or just would you want planning board joint meeting, or I'm just thinking out?
I think I'd reserve my opinion until I see how, if it goes together smoothly, we would love to have you present and don't require it. If there's dissension and you're coming to us to cut the baby in half, then we want to hear from all of you.
Who has?
I
Go
would
ahead.
say we should be there,
Mhm.
based upon just not so much for questions from the select board, because the select board's gonna be so full of information on this by that point, but new people will be tuning in then from the town, and they'll be asking new questions. And if the planning board isn't there, then it's difficult. And that happened with the ADU issue before the last town meeting. So I would hate to see something like that happen again.
Mary?
Can I just ask a final question on that? And I don't have it in front of me. I feel like it was, what was the date that you have to send it to the state by? Or you want to send it to the state by?
Yeah, at the beginning of June.
Beginning of June. So, you know, not knowing how many meetings the planning board's gonna need to have once we get the report, what is, and I feel like I didn't see it in there, what is the drop dead date for the task force to drop it or pass it over to the planning board? Is it end of April, middle of April?
I don't think we had a drop dead date. I think we had kind of an initial joint meeting and then I don't have, again, I don't have it in front of me, but I think maybe at a second joint meeting in there.
Final review and submission vote,
What date is that?
5/13.
Final review and submission.
5/21, send package to EOHLC.
Is there any wiggle room on the 90 days?
There is.
There may be,
So I get, my point was just that we know the date and we know we're gonna need a few planning board meetings once we have the package, so, I mean, I think we just have to be able to say to the task force, we need it by X date.
Or, as Mark said, we may have to schedule extra meetings.
Well, but and that's probably true, but I think the planning board should be in the position to say to the task force, listen, we need your report by such and such date, because even if we have to have meetings, you know, once a week for 4 weeks, we as members need time to digest the information.
Right, and starting in April, we're gonna have peer review after peer review after peer review on cell signaling. So we're gonna be a full plate
Right.
to do both.
So,
This is gonna be, our own task force. Sarah?
It seems like there's opportunity for you guys to figure out these dates. And maybe it would be helpful to think about the dates as to what the outcomes are. And so that, because they might be marginal and iterative. And I also seem, at least in my mind, I see us going collectively to the state. And I think, you know, public hearing, I tend to agree with Ann on a public hearing there, we hear some input. And, but that this is it's not, to me, it's not like the task force just hands it to the planning board and walks out the door. It's a collective refinement and understanding of the why these recommendations have resulted, and then perhaps some refinement collectively, rather than you know, throw it over the wall to us, because I think it's joint work.
So just to be clear, there is a legal requirement for a public hearing before a zoning change.
Right.
And we can't really do that until the fall, that's what I was talking about.
Right.
We can certainly have informal or other public hearings along the way.
Forums, yeah.
Forums, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter, public hearings. But the real one is gonna be October sometime.
Yeah. But formal public input is, I think,
Yes.
however that, whatever we call it.
I'm sorry. So if we're submitting this to the state, why would we not submit it to the people and ask for their formal, non-formal?
oh, we have,
Oh, we do, yeah, of course we do.
and we need time maybe if we need to do a survey or all sorts of stuff.
I know that's true, but
What kind of survey would you like to do, Mary?
Well, if just top of my head, so I have no idea what the task force is gonna, and I don't agree with Sarah, I think it's not a throw over the wall, but it's the task force presents to the planning board the final report, and we, you know, discuss it at, you know, a meeting or 2 meetings, whatever it takes for them to present it, and then it becomes in the planning board's lap, and we discuss it as a planning board. But if there were to be a survey, I'm not saying there would have to be, you could do a survey if the task force presents 6 options and residents say, you know, pick 3 of the 6, pick 2 of the 6, right? So that we as board members have a feel for what residents are thinking. So that would be one survey, or what would be another quick survey?
You don't have 6 options.
I mean, Or that we, say that we want to negotiate with the state, right? Like saying that this is not a good fit for Manchester, and, we can't increase our housing stock by 25%, but maybe we could do 15%, right? And so see how residents feel about engaging, going down that track. Like, I just haven't heard any of that or seen any of that. So those types of things. And so that is something that the planning board would do once we have it.
Have to do it quickly.
Well, that's why I'm saying we have to get that date and then give a good amount of buffer time.
Any other comments on the task force?
I'm beginning to think maybe we may want to bring some of the task force in for a little more.
Yeah.
Because clearly Mary and Christina aren't as involved in what the task force has been doing as the rest of the planning board. And clearly it's clear right now that you need to be brought up to speed as far as what the task force is doing, so we can then, so you understand where they've gotten to. Now, I wasn't here during the first, 6 to 8 months of the work, but a lot of work was done in order to get to that point. So I think perhaps we ought to set aside some time on the 11th, to have maybe, even if it's just a preliminary something for the first half hour, and just limit it to that, to try and bring you up to speed on
The 11th of March?
Yeah. Or just a half hour, perhaps, maybe,
Well, we could.
Do that, and probably be more robust than a half hour knowing this board.
Can I? We spent a considerable amount of time talking about misinformation at the forum, and I just heard some, what I think is a pretty gross misinformation that we might increase housing by 25%. So let's be really careful and about not stating things that are incorrect, and let's get the facts. And let's sort of harken back to that criticism of the forum, which seems to me pretty. So harken back to that criticism, which said, we don't know what we're saying, we're gonna put out wrong information. Let's be really careful that we don't put out wrong information. And so let's listen to what the task force has done, hear it, get the frequently asked questions from the task force who is immersed in this, and then bring ourselves up to speed so that we're accurate.
One other point I want to make too, which is the task force is not a monolith. We all come with different points of view and different, you talk to Richard Smith and he has one point of view, and you talk to me and you get a different one. So it's
that is true.
You gotta bring them together then.
Well, yeah, so do you, actually.
And Sarah Milledge to that mix.
And Ann Harrison.
Bring it all together. I don't know.
I'm gonna say it here in a second.
Herding cats kind of thing. Mary.
2 points. So I don't know what the misinformation was, and it changes though, but so if the 585 units out of roughly 2,400 units that we have roughly housing units, I'm sorry if I misspoke and said 25%, it's 24.375%. I just rounded up.
Mary,
that's
factually, you could make that argument. But in point of fact, that's not gonna happen.
And it's also 555, not 580.
Well, it's 559 and they just changed it and I don't know why. So those are some of the things, right? Like what is the calculation? How do they do the calculation? Why does the calculation keep changing? But I'm getting off track. So the mandate is to increase housing density by 25%.
No, it is not.
It's to zone for it.
That's exactly right.
So-
And for every existing residential unit that's rezoned, that gets deducted from the total number of additional units.
I am just saying, basically, if you take it at face value, at 559, so that might bring it down to 22, whatever. So it's not
It
misinformation.
may be as low as 150 units of actual new housing.
So-
We're talking
that would
apples
be
and oranges.
zoned. They're not even
So let
built.
me,
Apples and
let me just, this isn't on the, so. this is some-
people.
This is on the agenda, so it's great that we have this discussion, I think we should have it at our joint meeting. I think that'd be better
Okay.
served. It's not really on the agenda tonight to get into the weeds of the detail. But I do see our liaison, Becky has her hand up. Becky, do you have a comment? Can't hear you, Becky.
We can't hear you.
Your mic on? Okay. Sorry. All right, well, you can send us an email.
You don't have her muted on your end?
I think she's joined without audio, you can tell.
Okay. Anything else on the, I think we've exhausted that. Cell signaling we did the liaisons.
No, I have one comment. So when we were talking about, is it 19 Smith Point Road? Sarah, you brought up that maybe do the site walk for 2 curb cuts or 2 driveway openings. Just want to remind everyone, our new bylaws only allow 1. We don't have a,
They don't. If it is, if there is we went over this last time.
last time, meeting.
Last meeting, I reviewed the bylaw. If the DPW is going to approve it, it's 1. If there is an exemption or it doesn't, sorry, not all night.
For driveways.
For
and-
driveways that don't meet the stipulated requirements, then it comes to the planning board. So with 2 driveways, it would come to the planning board.
2 entrances.
2 entrances. Thank you.
Does it require a public hearing?
Yes.
If it's a
Site plan review, yeah.
Oh, so it comes in under site plan?
Right, which is why I feel like they should amend we can talk about how to do that.
So where did you say, where specifically are you getting that language?
In the general bylaws, the driveways.
Yeah, Sarah reviewed the general bylaw.
So there shall be no more than 1 apron and curb cut per
Go
residential
down to the
lot.
bottom, the end of this section. It says if you can't meet those requirements, then it goes to the planning board.
That's the double application.
So what requirements are you not meeting?
One
One
curb cut,
or one
driveway entrance.
I thought town council actually weighed in on this and basically said, this is what you got.
They were talking about the regulations. Anyway, we can talk about it later, perhaps put it back on the agenda for them, but.
Okay, it's 3 hours. Minutes from 1:08 and 1:22. Anybody, any motions, any changes, any motions to approve?
Second.
Sets of minutes.
Both?
Yes.
I didn't see the 22nd.
Motion and any discussion on both minutes, 1:08 and 1:22? All those in favor, raise hand. Opposed, none. Gail, you can publish. Gail, also post the site or walk for 2 p.m. if you're still with us.
Yes, Ron, I'm still here.
Okay, 2 p.m. Motion to adjourn? Oh, sorry, Mary.
So floodplain and aquifer overlay dropped off.
Right.
Because
we sort of discussed that and we said there's too much on our plate, so we weren't gonna, we sort of said, we can't discuss it, there's too much, we don't have time. We're gonna have to wait till after the end of the calendar year, in my opinion, and I think that was the board's opinion, also. No, we don't have a minute to spare. 2 major, we missed the April deadline. We have to hold public hearings.
Oh, yeah,
The
I would.
floodplains aren't gonna be ready till March of 2025, the maps, so dropped it off. Motion to adjourn, second, any discussion, all in favor? Thank you all, great.